Bend, Oregon, a tranquil city with a low crime rate. Campus security guards are a reassuring presence for the college town's 10,000 students. But what happens when a friendly face turns out to be hiding a deadly obsession? A missing student, a desperate man, and a multi-state crime spree. This is the story of the disappearance of Kaylee Sawyer.
She's kept screaming, and I just saw her forever.
Kaylee Sawyer had lived in the picturesque town of Bend, Oregon all her life. She was from a large and blended family. When Kaylee was young, her parents separated and both went on to remarry. As a result, she was the oldest of 5 siblings and the shining light of family gatherings. She was also an enrolled member of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe, South Dakota, the great-great-great-granddaughter of Chief Joseph Forebear. In 2016, at the age of 23, Kaylee was working as a dental assistant at Opry Dental. She had also re-enrolled at Central Oregon Community College and was living near campus with her boyfriend of 2 years, Cameron Reimhofer. Her parents could see her having a future with him, and that future looked bright. On July 23, 2016, Kaylee dressed up in a black dress and brown boots to attend a bachelorette party in downtown Bend. Her friends and boyfriend would later remember the green purse she had been carrying that night. When Kaylee headed out that hot summer night, no one could have predicted she would not return home. Several bars and a few drinks later, Kaylee's friends spotted her dancing with a man who was not her boyfriend. At 4 minutes past midnight, she contacted Cameron asking him to pick her up. When he arrived, they fought in the car. Cameron was worried about Kaylee's reckless behavior. The day before, she had texted her father saying she had been busy trying to figure things out and that she was in a bit of a hole. The fight escalated, and when the couple arrived at their apartment at 12:14 a.m., Cameron suggested Kaylee take some time to cool off. He went upstairs to wait at their apartment while Kaylee took a walk, something she had done countless times before when things had gotten heated. It was a safe neighborhood. He had no reason to think she wouldn't be back a few minutes later, calmer and ready to talk things through. But by 12:24 a.m., Kaylee had not returned. Worried, Cameron went downstairs to look for her. She was not there, and at 12:30 he texted her asking, "Where are you? Please come home and talk to me." They argued over text for a while before he said, "Please don't do this to me. I apologize for being upset when I picked you up. I just drove up and down College Way really slow. I didn't see you, and I didn't know where else to go. Just come back." He was searching for her desperately now, but she did not want to talk to him. Her last message to him at 1 a.m. read, "Are you kidding? Because that's BS. Goodbye. Phone off." He replied, "Kaylee, please." Cameron did not find Kaylee that night despite trawling the roads near the couple's apartment. Eventually, he had to assume she was taking the night to cool off. Reluctantly heading home, he expected to hear from her in the morning. But the reconciliation he was desperately hoping for was destined never to happen. On the morning of July 24th, Cameron woke up to Kaylee's side of the bed still worryingly empty. At 9 a.m., he tried to call her, but she did not pick up. He went to her friend's house, hoping Kaylee had gone there to stay the night. Kaylee's car, a Subaru Impreza, was parked where she'd left it the day before, but Kaylee was not there. This was when Cameron decided to call Kaylee's parents. It was a Sunday, and Kaylee's father, Jamie, was in church when the call came in. But he picked up, telling his wife afterwards, "Cam can't find Kaylee." There were no sightings of Kaylee all morning. Her phone kept going to voicemail, and even her mother, Julie, could not get hold of her, something highly unusual in the close-knit family. In the early afternoon, Cameron made the decision to call 911.
Dispatch, how can I help you?
Hi. I'm not sure if this is quite the right number to call. Last night I got home from the bars with my girlfriend. She got upset at me and ran off. And I chased her and wasn't able to find her, and I still haven't heard from her. Her phone's off. I called all her family and they haven't heard from her, so I'm wondering what you recommend I do.
We can put in a call and we can have officers or deputies look for her.
Okay.
Where was she last seen at?
College Way. Alpine Meadows apartment complex. It's like at the top of College Way. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I guess she said her phone was about to die, and then I couldn't get a hold of her after that. I haven't heard from her since.
Okay. Any idea where she would go, or?
I don't know. I figured she'd go where her car was to her best friend's or her mom's, and I've been over to both. Talked to her dad, and I just haven't heard anything from anybody knowing this.
Okay. Does she go to, like, have a job that she needs to be out that she missed or anything like that?
Not today. She has work tomorrow at Aubrey Dental.
Okay. And any diagnosed mental or physical health issues?
No, none that I know of.
However, Julie told police Kaylee had a history of epilepsy, suggesting she was an at-risk person. This meant that the police might treat her case with urgency rather than waiting a day or two for Kaylee to return of her own accord.
Dispatch, how can I help you?
Kaylee had had just one seizure many years earlier, and the condition was well managed. But Julie felt no guilt about exaggerating. She knew in her gut that something sinister had happened to her daughter. The first 48 hours are the most critical for locating a missing person. Julie's mother's instinct told her something was very wrong. As the search for Kaylee Sawyer continued, Julie would sadly be proven right. The police talked to Kaylee's family, friends, and Cameron. As her boyfriend and someone who had rowed with Kaylee the night of her disappearance, Cam was under the spotlight. But officers soon ruled him out. Lieutenant Devin Lewis believed that Cam truly had no idea where she was. Next, they spoke to the stranger Kaylee had danced with in the bar. Had she snuck back to meet him after her fight with Cameron? It was a tantalizing theory. The man admitted to flirting with Kaylee, but he insisted he hadn't seen her again after she left the bar. With no leads and no firm suspects, the police were stumped. Perhaps Kaylee's disappearance really was her own choice. Was she taking a few days away to figure things out as she'd told her father? The test, they decided, would be to wait and see if she showed up for work the next day. Dedicated to her job as a dental assistant, if Kaylee had missed a day, the police and her loved ones could be sure that she was in trouble. As the morning of Monday, the 25th of July dawned, so did the horrible realization that Kaylee was still missing. That very same morning, another Oregon woman woke up to a horrifying revelation. Isabel Ponce Lara was a rookie cop who had spent an ordinary weekend with her husband, Edwin Lara. Lara was a security guard for Central Oregon Community College. He'd got home in the early hours of Sunday morning from working his night shift as a campus safety officer. They went to church together, where he seemed quiet and showed her less affection than normal. She asked him what was wrong, but he didn't explain. She guessed it was just the normal stress from work and didn't question him further. They stopped by Pizza Hut and watched Netflix at home. Then, he suggested they go out to see a movie in Bend. The only strange detail she noticed, other than him being withdrawn, was that he had the windows on the car cracked open.
This whole time up to when you're going to the movie, anything stand out to you?
You know what I just thought about right now? He had the windows cracked open. He never did that.
Okay.
And I asked him about that, and he said, oh, it's hot.
The next day, however, things changed. She suspected nothing wrong until he disrupted their morning routine. He painted a vivid picture of guilt and panic, describing to his wife a horrific accident. He claimed that he accidentally hit a woman with his campus security car. He had panicked and had hidden her body. Isabel was confused. Why would someone hide the evidence of a tragic accident? After he had confessed to his wife, Edwin took her service weapon and drove off, leaving her to worry that he might do something to hurt himself. At 11:52 a.m. on Monday, July 25th, she took her fears to the police. Following up on Edwin's claims, the police searched the couple's property. They discovered a trash bag of female belongings in Laura's shed, just as he had told Isabel. These included a green purse soaked in blood, containing an ID card belonging to none other than missing woman Kaylee Sawyer. They also found bloodied clumps of blonde hair and a rock, also stained with blood. The police already had reason to doubt Laura's story, as his wife had. One lieutenant said, "Some people leave the scene of accidents because they're scared, but they return a short time later," or something like that. But that's not what Ed did. And here in Laura's shed was evidence to suggest his car was not all that he'd hit Kaylee with. The red-stained rock was bagged as a potential murder weapon, and the disappearance of Kaylee Sawyer had suddenly become a murder inquiry. The main suspect was nowhere to be found, but in the shed was further evidence of the macabre and troubled mind that could have committed such a crime. Laura had studied criminal justice. Propped against the wall of the shed was a college psychology project, a graphic informational poster on the Railroad Killer. The Railroad Killer was a Mexican serial killer active in the 1990s. He was a drifter hopping trains to avoid detection as he murdered at least 15 people across the United States and Mexico. Laura's poster was smeared with red paint to mimic blood spatter and handprints, along with graphic images of victims' bodies. The Railroad Killer's weapon of choice was whatever came closest to hand, including heavy rocks. It was a chilling parallel with the way police now believed Kaylee Sawyer might have died, and a hint of her suspected killer's fascination with murder. Police returned to Isabel to learn more about Edwin Lara's character. They asked if he was a drinker, had anger issues, or had ever been violent. She told them that she and her husband had stopped drinking when they went back to church and that Lara had never been violent towards her. However, Lara had been having an affair. He had family in California and had been seeing a woman there while Isabel was in the police academy. According to Isabel, he had begged for her forgiveness and they were working through it. Lara's co-workers told a more sinister story. At work, in security at the community college, he had showed nude photos of himself and his mistress to his colleagues and reportedly had a fascination with dead bodies. This made one female cadet so uncomfortable that she refused to ride in a car with him. Isabel, however, wanted to keep him close. After she learned about the affair, she went on several ride-alongs with Lara at his work. He usually drove around alone in the campus security car. He showed his wife areas around town that were out of the way, hidden from public view. He knew the back roads of the area intimately. By this point, the police knew that they were looking for Kaylee's body, and with this new information, it was clear he could have hidden her anywhere. It was a lead on locating her remains, but even more urgent was finding the killer himself, and the police had no idea where he could have fled to. Edwin Lara knew he was in trouble. The story he had told Isabel was not holding up, and even if the police had believed it, he'd still be guilty of a crime. He went on the run, and his desperate attempts to remain free led to a crime spree that sowed terror across 2 states. The first person to fall victim to Lara's murderous desperation was 19-year-old Andrea Mays. Andrea was working at a Ross Dress for Less in Salem, Oregon, a town a few hours northeast of Bend. At 8:45 p.m. after a 12-hour shift, she got into her car and relaxed for a moment on social media. She took a selfie to post on Snapchat and was reading a Facebook message from a friend when Edwin Lara decided to make her his next victim. Edwin was armed with his wife's gun, carrying a backpack, and wearing a bulletproof vest. He shoved his arm through the open window of Andrea's car and demanded that she take him where he wanted to go at gunpoint. Fearing for her life, she had no choice but to do as he said. He told her he had been waiting in the parking lot for a while, waiting for a woman he could carjack. He had spoken to a pregnant woman who had brushed him off, boasting to Andrea, "Little does she know what I could have done to her." He claimed to be a cop, telling Andrea, "I don't know if you heard what happened to the girl I just killed." Gone was the tearful demeanor he had displayed for his wife. His violence was now a source of notoriety and even pride. After an hour, Lara told Andrea to pull over because she was driving too fast. He handcuffed her to the gear shift and drove himself, terrified that he would be stopped for speeding. They continued for several hours until they reached a motel in Southern Oregon. He forced her to pretend to be his girlfriend, holding her hand, threatening that he'd kill both her and the motel clerk if she didn't act as though everything was fine. She'd visibly begin crying, but the motel clerk noticed nothing wrong and allowed them to check in to the motel. In the motel room, he handcuffed her to the bed frame and forced her to swallow sleeping pills. She tried her hardest to stay awake, terrified that he would assault her while she slept. Suddenly, her phone alarm sounded. Lara panicked, sure someone was calling Andrea to find out where she was. She thought quickly. She told him she had an STI and that the alarm was to remind her to take her medication. After that, he didn't touch her. But he did become increasingly paranoid about helicopters being sent to find him. He left the motel, taking Andrea with him as a human shield. She was out in the open once again, but was Andrea any safer from assault or even murder at the hands of her abductor? They were soon to meet Edwin Lara's third victim. Andrea's car was leaking oil, so Lara decided they needed to steal a new one. In the parking lot of a new motel in Wairika, California, a wildlife photographer named Jack Levy was loading up his car. He was in the area to take photographs of butterflies. With his hostage Andrea in tow, Lara burst into Levy's room, demanding the man's car keys, but Levy refused, instead yelling for help. Desperate to avoid detection and with nothing left to lose, Edwin Lara shot Levy in the abdomen. As Levy fell to the ground, Lara fled with Andrea, dragging her on foot to a nearby gas station. In need of new wheels to continue his getaway, Lara targeted a family parked there. 17-year-old Nima Gavimi and his grandmother and younger brother. Lara threw Andrea into the car and then carjacked Nima at gunpoint, saying, "Drive or I'll shoot." Nima, scared for the lives of himself and his family, drove. As they drove, Lara engaged his victims in a bizarre conversation. He asked them if they had ever had an urge to kill. He blamed his own urge for what he'd done. 15 minutes later, he released the terrified family, though Andrea remained in his grasp. His behavior became increasingly erratic.
All right, so that's all I wanted to say.
You
I don't
need
want.
any kind of medical or?
Yeah, well, I think so. I'm gonna need my inhaler. I forgot my inhaler at home.
Edwin, how fast are you going?
I'm going about 120 miles an hour
You're going about 120 miles an hour?
Yes.
Can you slow down?
Well, I want to make it there quick. That way I can turn myself in.
Well, the officer sees you. With it. We just don't want you to speed away from anything. If you can stop and just give yourself in, it'll probably be easier.
Well, there's an officer behind me right now.
Okay, they see you. We're talking to them. They see you.
Yeah, she's seeing me. I think it's a she. She's right behind me.
Okay. The officer sees you, and are you able to safely stop?
Yeah, I can stop, but not right now. I'll stop in Corning.
What's the difference from stopping now in Corning?
I just don't want to stop right here in the middle of the road, putting myself in danger and putting everybody else in danger, more in danger, I guess.
They won't. They're aware. I'll let them know they won't. But if you can stop safely, they just don't want you to run. They think you're trying to run or anything.
Okay.
Edwin, do you have any weapons with you?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I do have a gun on me. I am not going to flash the gun, so you tell them not to shoot me.
Okay.
No, I don't want to die.
Okay, you stick by your word, though. I'll let them know.
Yeah, I'm going to let them know. Don't hurt Andrea. She's a nice girl. Don't hurt her. I'm actually calling my family just to say bye to them. So once I'm done calling all my family, then I'll turn myself in.
Okay, we can get a hold of your family if you want.
I already called my wife. I called a lot of people already. I am wanted for the death of Kaylee Sawyer at Bend, Oregon. I just want to say that it was an accident. So I work for Campus Public Safety there, and she was really drunk, and I didn't see her, and I ran her over.
Okay.
And then after that, I just she was still breathing, and then she was screaming, and I decided to silence her forever. Just, I know this is being recorded, and I just want to say to the family of Kaylee that I am sorry. I am sorry for what I did to her, and in time I will tell them where the body is. I will just, that way she can rest in peace.
Do you want to let me know, or just have this recorded where it is?
No, I remember.
Okay.
So, hopefully the police officer doesn't shoot me, and I'll survive,
Yeah.
He tried to use both Andrea and his knowledge of Kaylee's whereabouts as leverage to protect himself.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, Andrea. Are you
Hi.
okay? You don't need any medical or anything?
No.
Okay, so Edwin, where's his gun at? Does he have it still between his legs?
I don't know.
Can you see it? He said he had it between his legs. Is he stopping?
Yeah.
He is stopping?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, make sure your hands are up too and stuff. I know you're on the phone right now, but just hold your hand up so they can see your hands too.
Okay.
I'm going to stay on the line with you until the officers get there, okay? And you're going to be okay. Andrea?
Mm-hmm.
Does he have his hands up?
Yeah.
He does have his hands up? Okay. Just tell him to make sure that the officers...
Hey, who are you? Tell him I can't.
He said he can't hear her.
Do I get out or do I?
Tell him we're letting the officers know that he can't hear her.
He's already walking towards them.
He's walking towards him. Tell him to make sure he holds his hands up.
Yeah, he is.
He is. Tell him to turn around and don't walk towards him. He can walk backwards towards him.
I can't. He's too far.
Okay. And if you want to do the same, once he gets out and stuff, just turn around and walk backwards towards him. Don't walk facing him.
Okay. Do I stay on the line with you?
Once you get out, I'll go ahead and disconnect the line. Once you get out, can you see, do they have him in custody already?
They're putting the cuffs on him right now.
Putting the cuffs on him?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to hang up and just get out and you walk backwards towards him with your hands up, okay?
Okay.
Okay, Andrea, it's going to be okay.
Finally, the operator convinced him that the police would not hurt him. So he stopped his car, and at 7:01 a.m. Tuesday, July 26th, he was taken into custody. After a terrifying crime spree across 2 states and nearly 24 hours, 5 of his 6 victims were alive to tell the tale. Jack Levy was in hospital in critical condition, but he would go on to make a full recovery. Kaylee Sawyer had not been so lucky.
But I want to get on first. Okay, so here's what I know about this. Hear me out, sir. We can't change what happened, the 3 of us in this room. And people will care more about what happens right now than what happened before. So we know that you've been talking to some people, et cetera, right? And because we have different jurisdictions, I can assure you that right now the DA's office is working on allowing us to take you back to Oregon, okay? But they're still working on that, okay? So in the meantime, we need to consider some things, okay? If this information gets to other people that you were like, hell yeah, I'm gonna tell you, but only until I get what I want, they might try to think of this about something different than what it is.
They worked to gain his trust.
I don't think you're a bad guy, right? I think that things have spun completely out of control, sir. Sir, am I right? Okay. But that being said, you know from your training and your education that we have a massive load of resources right now dedicated to one thing, and that's to serve the victim's family, okay? And they need that, and they need that right now. And so I need you to remember that it doesn't matter so much about what happened, it's what you do now.
Yeah. And you know this, man. Not
Finally, he indicated the location on a map. Police sped toward the scene, and on July 26th, 2 days after she went missing, the body of Kaylee Sawyer was discovered beside a highway in Oregon.
A tragic update to bring to you tonight in the disappearance of Bend resident Kaylee Sawyer. Police now say they found a body and they believe that to be Sawyer's body. Now, Edwin Lara has been arrested yesterday in connection with this. Edwin Lara is a 31-year-old Redmond resident currently employed at COCC working as a part-time campus public safety officer. We've recently learned that Lara's wife, Isabel Pons Lara, as I mentioned, is a Bend police officer who yesterday morning reported her husband's potential involvement in this.
At the medical examiner's office, it was determined she had been killed by blunt force trauma. The condition of her body was so horrific that the police advised her family not to look at the autopsy photos. In a car Lara had abandoned in Salem moments before kidnapping Andrea, the police discovered 2 notes. In chilling handwriting, Lara had described where he had killed her and written another note that read, "This note is to say I'm sorry for taking her life. To her dad, I'm sorry. To her mom, I'm sorry. It was an accident. She screamed and I had to silence her. My intention was not forever. To my wife, I'm sorry. I will forever love you." The evidence painted a conflicting picture. He was unquestionably guilty of murder, but he was displaying pride as well as remorse for what he had done. The answers lay in Lara's police interview. First, he maintained the story he had told his wife, that he had accidentally hit Kaylee, who was drunk.
You know, I was in a hurry because I wanted to get out of it. And I was going to turn south on College Way on the D4 lot. So I was going to turn south on the area there. And I didn't see her. She was wearing all black. So I was in a hurry, so it was my fault. And I wasn't expecting anybody, you know, at that time of night. So I just turned and I mean, I didn't hit her that hard. I just bumped her with the patrol car, bumped her with the front rack, and she fell down. And at first I thought, you know, first thing I killed her, you know, but I didn't hit her that hard. So I got off the car and she was really drunk. And then she looks at me and then she started screaming.
She started screaming at you.
She did. So I panicked and I just grabbed her by the throat.
But the detectives now knew this wasn't true. They kept pushing him for answers. He admitted to choking her to silence her. Then he admitted to assaulting her when he thought she was already dead. He was trying to paint a picture of panic and spontaneity, but the police knew better.
So a couple things you need to understand, and we're finally getting to the real problem here. We really are. Is you knew she was never getting out the car the moment you shut that door. Well, let me finish. You need to let me finish, right? Because I know this, okay? Because you said you were a hooker. She's like, no. Immediately you go to give me your purse and your phone.
Well, I knew she wasn't going to get out.
She wasn't going to survive that encounter, was she?
No.
Because you can't rape her and let her live, can you?
And she can't make a phone call if you have it.
I wasn't going to.
Well, you can't let her live.
Edwin, we're missing something here, man.
Look, yeah, I know what you guys are thinking, and it makes perfect sense. It does.
Because
Why would you ask for her purse? What was in your head that made you want her purse?
Because, you know,
just in case she had a gun, she could defend herself.
She was gonna use her phone
to call 911. Call for help.
So, but listen to this. According to your story, this is where it does not make sense. If your intent isn't already there to do some kind of harm or some kind of evil to her, some friggin' evil that's there, bro. It's there. You just gotta face it down, man. You can't cower away from it. You face that damn thing down right now. If you know the only way, if you don't have intent in her head, your thought is, I gotta keep that phone away from her because she's gonna call for help before anything bad's even happened. You've already made a decision. Am I right or am I wrong? Help me.
So I made the decision at that time to silence her.
To kill her. Let's be real. When you say silence her, you mean kill her. Is that correct?
Okay. Because
when did you make that decision?
When she started screaming. Because she had seen my face.
But you already grabbed her phone. You already kept her away from making a call for help or contacting someone. So you're already preserving yourself. So I'm thinking it's before, when you ask for the purse, I think you already know in your head, I'm going to silence her. I'm going to kill her. Why else would you ask?
So when she gave me her, like she had her phone, because I knew her phone was back there. Like it just clicked on my head, and I put her purse back there. Her phone is in there, you know. So I told her, give me the purse. So then
Tell me exactly how you said, give me your purse. Say exactly how you said it.
Okay, so I want to give me your fucking purse.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Okay.
So she hands over the purse, and I'm like, your phone is not in here. And she goes, yes, it is. So I start digging in the purse with this hand, and I find the phone, and it's there. So, and you know, very relieved. But at this time, she's struggling with the door, and I'm telling her, shut up.
You know why you felt relieved when you found that phone? You know why? Tell me why you felt relieved.
She wasn't calling her out.
And she was never gonna get away.
Because she had seen my face already.
She was already seen your face. And you already knew what you were gonna do.
No.
You were gonna silence her, you already told us that.
Well, yeah, but
why else would you grab her phone?
Because from the moment, that's when I knew that she wasn't a hooker. You know?
And she's gonna tell. She's gonna say something.
If I let her out of the car, she's gonna go say, hey, you know, security guard or something.
Throughout his crime spree, Lara had chosen his victims deliberately.
Do you have dominion over a woman?
Dominion?
Mm-hmm. Dominant. Is there anything about her life that means less than yours?
No.
Okay.
But you told us earlier when you were trying to carjack people in Salem, you wanted a woman who was weaker.
Weaker woman, because I knew a guy was gonna fight me and I didn't want to kill anybody.
Right. So you have dominion.
The police brought in a pastor to appeal to Lara's religion for a clearer confession.
The sound that you heard after the strike of the first rock, before you hit her with the second, is agonal breathing, and you know this. It's the sound of life leaving her body. It's the sound of the life God breathed into her, leaving her, and her life being no more, going away, being done. It's the sound of everyone loving her, mourning. It's the sound of her blood crying out from the friggin' earth. Right? You know this. It's Cain and Abel. No. No. You know what it is? You need to hear it though. Okay? I respect you enough, Edwin, at this point, that I've asked you for detail, and now I'm going to give you my own. Okay? Those are the cold hard facts. Does God still love you? Will He forgive you? Will He bring you back into His heart? Will He? Questions you have to answer for yourself. But the truth of the matter is that her blood cries out, man. That her life is gone. It will never be replaced. The truth of the fact is this. What you mistook for a hooker was an absolute angel. Was the apple of her mom and dad's eye. Was the breath that they breathed, that they spent and cultivated all their life raising and growing. And she is gone forever.
Finally, Lara cracked. He confessed to the horror that lay inside him, the urge to kill.
I think all throughout my life, I have struggled with somehow the urge to kill. But what has helped me not develop that, in a sense, was when I married my wife. It kind of dissipated because I had something to look forward to. Before that, I didn't have nothing to look forward to.
Is this addressed to Dad?
Yeah, the last one is for Susie.
Okay. I think it would play pretty well on recording if we read this out loud. It might show some of your emotion. Might show...
Want me to read it?
I would love you to read it. Thank you, sir.
I've been trying to ask Katie for forgiveness, but I don't think her soul hears my crying because God doesn't allow the devil to talk to angels. However, I know Katie hears you, and if you find it within your heart, please ask her to forgive me. I know that I will spend the rest of my life asking God to forgive me, but I don't think He will. Sir, this is directed to her dad. I am not sure what your name is, but I know for a fact that you loved your daughter. I read something that you were desperately looking for her, and that touched the little heart I have within me. I say a little heart, a little bit, because a man like me don't have a heart. A man like me doesn't deserve the job I had, and I will never have it again. The COCC. No one has to pay for my evil doing. Every officer on the campus are great men and women. I am sorry to my community. I am sorry because I failed you. I am sorry for wearing the badge.
In the early hours of July 24th, Kaylee Sawyer had walked away from the apartment she shared with her boyfriend and came upon Laura's campus security SUV. Labeled for public safety in a peaceful town like Bend, she would not have felt afraid getting into the car. It's unknown why she did, but it was the last tragic decision she would ever make. Inside, Laura propositioned her, offering her money. When she refused, he took her purse and phone. The car was the only car in the campus security fleet to be equipped with an interior cage like a police car. She could not escape. Instead, she was helpless when Laura choked her into unconsciousness before driving her to one of the dark, less traveled back roads he was familiar with from his work. When she woke up again and tried desperately to attract attention, screaming and shouting, there was no one around to hear her. Still, Laura choked her out again to silence her. Then he smashed a rock into her head and assaulted her, believing she was dead. He hit her again and again until he'd killed her. And then he left to clean himself of evidence before throwing her body in a ditch. Kaylee Sawyer had been robbed of her life by a man who had given in to his most evil impulses. All that remained was to get justice for her murder. Prosecutors faced an obstacle. Laura's disturbing confession was ruled inadmissible because of a misunderstanding around whether he'd been offered a lawyer or not. But even without the confession, the physical evidence and witnesses were undeniable.
Number one, to have our Kaylee back with us, alive and well, and pursuing her life. Number two, I wish to have this piece of garbage, the defendant, sentenced to death for what he's done to my Kaylee. And number three, I wish the court system in the state of Oregon would just hand him over to me and allow me to administer the death sentence.
In January 2018, Edwin Lara pled guilty to aggravated murder and grand robbery and was sentenced to life without parole.
Today, I've seen your pain. Today, I've seen your hate. I don't have much to say to you at this moment. Only a single prayer. Something I'd like to speak to whoever's willing to listen. God Almighty, who art in heaven, all the Elohim tonight.
In 2019, he was handed a second life sentence for the kidnapping and carjacking of Andrea Mays. He had committed awful crimes without any reason other than the urge to do it. Who knows what further evils he might have done if he hadn't been stopped by the efforts of Andrea, Isabel, and the 911 operator who convinced him to turn himself in. In 2019, the Oregon legislature passed Kaylee's Law. This law, campaigned for by Kaylee's family, was intended to ensure such a horrible fate could never befall another young person trusting that campus security would keep them safe. Lara had displayed several signs that he was dangerous, and his employers had done nothing about it, allowing him to continue to drive the vehicle with which he posed as a police officer. Kaylee's Law ensures that campus security in Oregon can never be mistaken for police again, and that someone like Edwin Lara will not be in a position of trust, abused for the sake of murder.
She was my first first grandchild. And she's very special. Kaylee was a warrior. But like I said at her memorial, she didn't carry a bow and arrow or a tomahawk. She carried a smile, and she carried love. And that's the kind of warrior she was.
What are your thoughts on this disturbing story? Did Lara truly feel remorse, or was it just an act? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. In October 2020, a woman from Seattle visited Dallas as a tourist. She went out in the city alone looking for some nighttime company, and she found it. It's a typical story. She was young, vulnerable, alone in a city she didn't know late at night. When she never returned home, all eyes turned to the CCTV footage and the mystery man she left with.
It was supposed to be a weekend trip. She was supposed to fly back on Monday morning.
But this was no ordinary case. When Maricela Botello went home with Charles Beltran, she put aside any natural suspicion of a stranger. No one could have predicted that she'd never be heard from again. What happened to her that night? And was it a mistake to trust this stranger? A jealous rage, an escape to Cambodia, and a murderous menage a trois. This is the truth of Maricela Botello's disappearance.
Ms. Dykes, I hope that you find that you've been treated with a much greater amount of dignity and respect than you ever treated Maricela Botello. May God have mercy on your soul.
Maricela Botello was an ordinary 23-year-old woman. She lived in Seattle with her parents and her little brother, where she was working hard so she could afford to return to school. She wanted to study to be a nutritionist. Her trip to Dallas would be a break from the pressure of work and her future ambitions. Her family was apprehensive about her traveling alone, but in the middle of the pandemic, tickets were cheap, and she wanted some time away. The last time her mother ever saw her, she was getting ready to leave the house in a taxi to the airport at 6 a.m. October 2nd, 2020.
No, ella... The Uber, she left at 6 a.m. and I saw her when she was picking up her suitcase, and she was so happy that she was coming to Dallas.
Maricela was booked on a flight back to Seattle on Monday morning, October 5th. Her last night away, the Sunday night, she wanted to make the most of being away from home. But her friend Raul Ortiz had passed out outside his apartment after partying a little too hard. She wasn't ready for the night to finish, so she went outside into Deep Ellum to party alone. Maricela's mother described her as friendly and joyous. She believed the best in people, outgoing and outspoken, and so it was no surprise that she got talking to the people she met outside bars that night in Deep Ellum. Charles Beltran was one such person. This security footage of the two of them in a 7-Eleven after leaving the bar is the last sighting of Maricela Botello. That is, until her body was discovered 6 months later. In March 2021, a witness stumbled upon human remains on the edge of the woods in Wilmer, a rural area 20 miles southeast of Dallas. They found bone fragments and a skull. This skull the police were able to identify as the skull of Maricela Botello. But how did she get from a bar in Deep Ellum to the woods in Wilmer? Her remains were so decomposed that her manner of death was unclear. Who had killed her? And what did the mysterious man on the CCTV footage, Charles Beltran, have to do with it? When he met Maricela outside a Deep Ellum bar in October 2020, Charles Beltran was 31. Also known as Chuck, he was an aspiring rapper and was working on a mixtape, according to his Instagram. That very night, October 4th, he had performed a rap show and was out in Deep Ellum to celebrate with his friends. He was looking for a good time, the same way Maricela was. He found her smoking outside a nightclub, and they struck up a conversation. Then, the two charismatic young people went back to his home together. But in the early hours that same night, Shortly before Maricela was due to fly home, the casual hookup went horribly, tragically wrong. As Charles tells it, he woke up to the sound of screaming. Maricela in the bed beside him was being stabbed. And who was stabbing her? None other than Charles's girlfriend, Lisa Dykes, in a jealous rage to find Charles in bed with somebody else.
This just from all the movement going on in the bed. That's when I wake up and I see Lisa on top of her.
What is she doing?
She's like with the knife coming down like this.
She had grabbed a kitchen knife and launched herself at Maricela, stabbing her in her sleep. Charles woke up and tried to push Lisa away. Both Lisa and Maricela rolled off the bed, and Charles pinned Lisa to the wall, shouting at her.
I looked towards Lisa and I grabbed Lisa and I pinned her to the wall, and I'm like, what the F are you doing, you know? And she's like, I told you not to bring any more girls over here.
It wasn't Charles that Maricela should have been afraid of. It was Charles's girlfriend. But this wasn't a simple case of jealousy and infidelity. To understand Lisa's attack on Maricela, we need to go back to the beginning of her relationship with Charles, which was non-traditional from the start. In his late 20s, Charles was working as a doorman at a bar. This bar was owned by Lisa Dykes' son. Lisa herself was in her 50s at the time, and there were substantial differences between Lisa and Charles's lifestyles. Charles was a convicted felon without a stable income. He spent a lot of time going between parties and chatting up women as he tried to get his rap career off the ground. On the door at the bar, he was earning about $100 a night. Lisa, however, was a litigation paralegal. Perhaps Charles was attracted to the prestige of her legal career. Perhaps Lisa found the younger man exciting. Either way, they struck up a relationship around 2016. Lisa came in to see her hairstylist one morning and told her about the younger men she had met.
She came in one morning and basically said that she had met a guy named Chuck. The first couple of times that she talked about him, she kind of mentioned, kind of laughingly, like it was her boy toy.
Lisa started taking Charles out for expensive dinners and using her own income to provide for his rap career.
He moves in, you buy him all that studio equipment.
Yes.
That's true.
Absolutely.
He sets up a studio in your house.
He does.
And is he working at first?
He did. He was extremely devoted to it. He kept a whiteboard on the wall. He had scheduled songs that he was doing, scheduled recording times. He had someone coming over to help him produce. So he was actually doing what he was supposed to do.
She set him up with a recording studio and provided him with a car. She would take care of anything material he wanted, and he would provide her with companionship. It was mutually beneficial.
Yes, I mean, when she met Chuck, she kind of started changing.
Lisa, who at the time had long blonde hair, had her hairstylist shave the sides of her head and color her hair platinum.
She came in one day and, of course, she had like longer blonde hair. I always did highlights in her hair. And she comes in one day and she's like, hey, I'm ready to do something completely different. And I was like, okay, well, to most people, to most hairdressers, doing something different is like, we're going to put some low lights in their hair, But she wanted me to completely shave the sides of her head. But I asked her, I was like, how are you going to get away with that at work? I mean, that seems a little inappropriate to do that. And she was like, oh, it's okay, it'll be fine. So I thought that was like really interesting that she would go from like wearing this beautiful long blonde hair to, to almost having no hair at all.
She also started getting tattoos. This was a drastic change that didn't fit with her professional circumstances as a woman with a serious legal career, but instead suggested she was getting in touch with a wilder side of herself.
Chuck has a lot of tattoos, doesn't he?
Yes.
In fact, the one that's right there on your wrist, if you'll show that to the jury, please. And we're talking about the one right there on your wrist, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one right there.
Right.
You're aware that Chuck has that same tattoo, doesn't he?
He does. Yes, he does.
Okay. So you are a 57-year-old woman investing in a rapper's career. You don't have any personal relationship at all, but you get a matching tattoo.
The tattoo is actually the logo for the business that I started for him, that I'm invested in, math class. That's what the tattoo is.
Lisa was also becoming less responsible. Her daughter Chelsea had been living with her when she met Charles. But soon after the relationship began, Lisa convinced her daughter to move to Florida.
And I was like, why? And she says, well, she goes, I'm ready to live the life that I want, and I can't do it with her here.
And she said that in front of Chelsea.
Yes.
And Chelsea heard her.
She did.
It was soon after this that Charles moved in with Lisa. Clearly, Lisa didn't like having anyone else involved in her relationship with the younger man. But there was an exception to this jealous streak, and a further twist in the tale of Charles and Lisa's tangled relationship. Lisa had been friends with a woman in her 40s named Nina Morano for a while. Nina Morano was a prestigious lawyer who had attended Columbia University and was living in Pennsylvania. In 2019, Lisa began talking about her friend Nina almost constantly, while she rarely mentioned Charles. Nina would come to visit her in Texas, while Lisa occasionally went to see her in Pennsylvania as well.
It was all about her and Nina. So one day she came in and she told me that Nina was coming in town. And I was like, okay, so all you're talking about is Nina. Are y'all together? And she goes, well, yeah. And I was like, yeah, but girl, you're not into women. She goes, yeah, but Nina can give me everything that I've ever wanted.
In 2020, Nina and Lisa got married.
Is that Nina and Lisa's unified vows?
Yes.
Okay, and then at the bottom it just mentions Nina, Lisa, and Chuck closing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And at the bottom it says, we are hers, we are one.
We love each other. We love each other like sisters. Like, this is a unique relationship. I think we might think about marriage, Nina and I do, maybe differently than the average person. Not every marriage is based on sex or, that physical connection. Nina and I are supportive of each other in every way other than that.
Charles was still in the picture, however. When Nina moved into Lisa's house, Charles did not move out. The three of them lived together in a relationship. The hairstylist remembers one occasion she went to the house where the throuple lived, and she saw something that horrified her. Lisa was showing her some dresses in the bedroom closet.
When you were walking out of, that closet, what did you see?
So as I turn around, literally straight across from me, when I turn around out of the closet, I see an altar, and it had this big statue thing that to me resembled like a Grim Reaper. And I completely freaked out. I didn't want to show how scared I was, but I just froze when I saw it. And so, she bumps into me. She's like, Kat, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm looking back at her and I'm looking at this thing and I don't know what to say. And she goes, what's wrong? And I was like, and I pointed at her, I was like, are you into witchcraft? And she goes, well, I've dabbled in it.
This respectable paralegal had undergone a complete personality change over only a few years. Lisa and her two partners were mixing up with the occult, and she was becoming angry and jealous over this three-way relationship that she herself had started. Charles had a reputation as a ladies' man, and this didn't stop even when they were living together.
As far as him bringing women, were you jealous about him bringing women?
Absolutely not. He particularly seemed to like having a friend of his, a male friend of his, come over to be with the girls that he brought home. So that's basically two guys and a girl.
And he would brag about it?
Absolutely.
Well, did that make you jealous?
No.
In the summer of 2020, Lisa came to a hair appointment and told her stylist that she had caught Nina and Charles in bed together.
She was like, I could just kill her.
A figure of speech or a precursor to the jealous rage yet to come?
After you have sex, what happens next?
We chill, chop it up, talk for a little bit, smoke a cigarette. Well, I smoke a cigarette. And
Did she smoke cigarettes?
no, she didn't.
She didn't smoke any cigarettes while you were there?
Not around me.
And smoke cigarettes, talk, chat a little bit, then what?
Fell asleep.
Were you aware that she had to leave the next day to catch a flight?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, was it your plan to wake her up and take her back wherever she needed to be?
I mean, at that time, we wasn't even thinking.
When Lisa and Nina came home in the early hours of October 5th to find Charles in bed with Maricela, Lisa flew into a frenzy.
So you're asleep. Tell me what happens next.
I wake up to her screaming, saying, "Help me, help me." And I look up, and it's just from all the movement going on in the bed. That's when I wake up and I see Lisa on top of her.
What is she doing?
She's like with the knife coming down like this. And once I notice the knife, that's when I push Lisa off of her.
And what happens when you push Lisa off of her?
I mean, I just my reaction was just to push her, and I pushed her hard. And her and Maricela like tumble over. I see Lisa still grabbing her. I jump over the bed, and as I come over to the bed, I'm trying to pry Lisa off of her, pull her apart. And Lisa got to like her hair or something to where she can't. She's trying to like get off of her, and I'm trying to pry them apart. You know how it's like if you hold something and somebody's trying to pull and you like let it go?
Yeah.
Like Maricela just ends up, as I'm pulling them off, it's like Lisa just kind of like let go, and she just tumbles over. She tumbles over and she falls on the bed. Then I look behind me, she falls on the bed, and I look towards Lisa, and I grab Lisa and I pin her to the wall, and I'm like, what the F are you doing, you know? And she just said that, I told you not to bring any more girls over here. Why are you disrespecting us? I do everything for you. And she was just like, you need to get your little...
Say it.
Your little bitch, and y'all need to leave now. I said, that's all you had to say, you know. And as I turn around, I'm fixing to tell Maricela, like, let's go. And she's just there. In my mind, I'm like, this can't be happening. I go to the restroom. I come out of the room, and I come to the restroom, turn the light on. I throw water on my face, trying to like tell myself like, wake up, you know, like this is not happening. Throw water on my face, and that's when I realized I'm still naked. I drop the towel, I put the towel on, come back in, and Lisa's just still standing there, like just looking at her, just staring at her.
Charles first told Lisa they had to call 911, but Lisa refused.
I could hear her saying something, like I can't recall what she's saying, but it sounds like she's saying like, what did I do? What did I do? As I come in, like I see the whole scene again, and I yell at Lisa. I'm like, Lisa, and she's like not snapping out of it. She's just like staring. I'm like, Lisa, you have to call 911. She was like, no, like hold on, think about what you're doing before you do it. And to me, like registering that, I was just thinking about the whole scene. Like I'm with her, I'm the last one with her. She's in my room. You know, it looks like I did something. So yeah, I was just like, you need to figure this shit out. You told me to leave. Like you did this shit. Like you need to. I'm gone. You know what I'm saying? I can't deal with this. Like it was just so much to deal with, and I put my clothes on and grabbed my stuff and left.
At first, Maricela's family and the police were clueless as to what had happened to her. Lisa and Nina, who worked together to cover up the crime, were smart, but evidence remained. An analysis of phone records showed that all four parties, Charles, Nina, Lisa, and the victim, Maricela, had been in that same house on the morning of October 5th. Phone records also showed that Nina and Lisa had traveled together to an area south of Dallas that same night, a wooded area, for disposing the body. When he returned a few days later, no sign of the crime remained, and the body of Maricela, who had simply picked the wrong man to go home with that night, was gone.
At some point in the days after, did you talk to her?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you talked to her, was Nina on the phone as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did y'all say?
They were just asking me where have I been, am I okay, come back home, everything's okay.
And when they said come back home, what did they tell you about how the home was?
They said it's back to normal. Everything's good, just come home.
Did they tell you what happened to Maricela?
No, ma'am, but I mean, I figured
Did you return back to the house?
eventually I did.
And what did you do when you returned?
I didn't want to be around them, so I went when they weren't there. I packed me some clothes and stuff and left.
What's your room look like?
Spotless. Like nothing ever happened.
They had also cleaned the house, but when it was searched, police discovered streaks of blood hidden underneath the carpet. DNA confirmed the blood to be Maricela's blood. The lab also matched a hair found in the trunk of Charles and Lisa's car to Maricela's DNA. She had been killed in Lisa, Nina, and Charles's house, and their shared car had been used to transport her body to the woods where it was found. Lisa and Nina fled to Florida after the killing, where they'd resumed their legal careers as though nothing had happened. But after Maricela's remains were discovered in March 2021, justice began to catch up with them. Nina was arrested on March 25th in Miami. Lisa was arrested 2 days later. Charles, who had not followed his partners to Florida, but had instead gone on the run across multiple states, was arrested in Utah in April. Maricela's family thought that soon they would see justice for her cruel murder. But Lisa and Nina were determined to escape the law. On Christmas Day 2021, they managed to remove their ankle monitors, which were a condition of their bail. The same day, they flew to Cambodia together to start a new life. They had thousands of dollars in cash, and it was through these cash withdrawals and a convenience store surveillance camera that they were finally caught.
The travel records, the flight records, indicated that they did fly into Cambodia, but we also wanted to check Cambodian immigration records to make sure that they hadn't departed Cambodia, moving on elsewhere. So we worked with the immigration department to confirm that they, at least officially, were still in Cambodia. Then we also received information from Bank of America that they were using, Lisa and Nina were using their Bank of America ATM cards at various banks in Cambodia.
All three of them faced trial, but in the end, it was Lisa who was at the center of this case. Lisa, whose jealousy and strange possessive behavior had led to such a tragedy. The cases against Nina and Charles were dropped as they pled guilty to evidence tampering, and Charles testified against Lisa. But Lisa denied it all.
Was it a love interest thing?
No. Chuck was and continued to always be a business interest that went sideways.
Did you go into the room and stab Maricela?
No.
Did you struggle with Maricela?
No, absolutely not. No.
Did you argue with Chuck about Maricela?
No.
Had you ever met Maricela?
No.
She denied she'd even met Maricela Botello or that she and Nina had been in a physical relationship with Charles. Lisa let her hair grow long again in its natural color, reversing all the dramatic changes her stylist noticed as her relationship with Charles deepened. Only by denying who she'd become over the years of her infatuation with him could she deny the jealous rage that had led her to kill an innocent 23-year-old. If she portrayed herself as a respectable paralegal in an ordinary monogamous relationship with her wife, Nina, she'd have no reason to be jealous in the first place. But this was not the case, and the jury saw through her story, returning a verdict in only 90 minutes.
Ms. Dykes, please stand. The first verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, having heretofore found the defendant, Lisa Jo Dykes, guilty of the offense of murder as charged in the indictment, and not having found by a preponderance of the evidence that such offense occurred while the defendant was under the immediate influence of sudden passion arising from adequate cause, assess her punishment at life in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and a fine of $10,000. The second verdict reads as follows. We, the jury, having found the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the offense of tampering with physical evidence as charged in the indictment, assess her punishment at confinement in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for 20 years. In addition thereto, assess a fine in the amount of $10,000. Ms. Dykes, I hope that you find that you've been treated with a much greater amount of dignity and respect than you ever treated Maricela Bernadez. May God have mercy on your soul.
60-year-old Lisa Dykes was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. She maintains her innocence and plans to appeal. What are your thoughts on this disturbing story? What could have caused Lisa's personality change? Could Maricela's tragic death have been prevented? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
The man accused of killing and then his parents.
Law enforcement officials showing a meat grinder and gas can were found in the trunk of what they say is Guy's car.
Guy is a college student in Louisiana. The Knox County Sheriff's Office called the crime scene gruesome.
It would be described as horrific, a very gruesome crime scene.
What investigators found inside has been dubbed by the state as a diabolical stew.
Knoxville, Tennessee, November 2016. A loving family spends a peaceful Thanksgiving together, with no idea of the horror to come. Joel and Lisa Guy were the loves of each other's lives. Described by those around them as true soulmates, the pair had been happily married for over 30 years. They invited their children to celebrate Thanksgiving in their family home, the same home that 2 days later would be described by police as a house of horrors. Scattered limbs, the stench of chemicals, and a head found boiling in a pot on the stovetop. This is the horrible story of Joel and Lisa Guy's awful demise. Joel Guy was a pipeline engineer born in 1955. He already had 3 daughters from a previous relationship when he met the love of his life, Lisa. Joel and Lisa went on to have a son together named Joel after his father. Joel Michael Jr., as he was known, was born in 1988 and was the couple's only child together. Yet Joel Sr. and Lisa remained close to Joel Sr.'s 3 daughters, with one of them describing Lisa as a loving mother to them all.
Now, Lisa was not your mother, is that correct?
Correct.
Can you tell the jury when you met Lisa and how that came about?
Lisa, when Michelle and I were 3, they met, and she's been like a second mother to us since before I can remember.
After 31 happy years of marriage, Joel Sr. had made retirement plans and was selling their house in Knoxville, Tennessee. Joel and Lisa were looking forward to being able to spend more time with each other in retirement. They had bought a house in Burgonsville, Tennessee, where they planned to live out their retirement. This was to be Lisa and Joel's last Thanksgiving in their Knoxville family home before their move.
Are you aware of Lisa's plans to retire?
Yes, she was excited about retiring and just spending her time. They were madly in love, so just spending time with each other.
It would be a celebration of their life together as they looked forward to a new chapter. But this new chapter would never arrive. Fast forward to Thursday, November 24th, 2016, Thanksgiving Day. The couple invited Joel Sr.'s 3 daughters and their children, along with their son Joel Jr., to celebrate Thanksgiving with them. Joel Jr. was normally reclusive and quiet, but Michelle Tyler, his half-sister, suggests that on this occasion, he was behaving unusually. Michelle states that Joel Jr. made more of an effort with his half-sister's children that Thanksgiving, something he had never done before. Perhaps there was something special about this Thanksgiving, she thought, as the last in the family home.
This day was a little different. It was always more, the typical time with Dad and Lisa was more laughing and banter, but if Joel Michael Jr. was there, he wasn't ever hanging with us doing that banter. He would be in his room.
And at some point, did he interact, though, with your children?
The Thanksgiving was different. The Thanksgiving was completely different. The moment that I arrived, Joel Michael Jr. was talking to us, and he had never. I'm not sure Joel Michael Jr. knew my kids' names, and so for him to talk to them was odd.
She had no idea it would be their last Thanksgiving as a family at all. After the Thanksgiving celebrations were over, Joel Sr.'s 3 daughters left with their children, and Joel Sr. and Lisa Guy remained in the house with their son Joel Jr. Joel Jr. had his own apartment in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but remained with his parents after the holiday in their Knoxville home, where he had his own bedroom. Joel had been a student at Louisiana State University for several years. Though he had wanted to be a plastic surgeon, Joel dropped out of college in 2015 and had not had a job since. He was reliant on his parents and financially insecure. On the afternoon of Saturday, 26 November 2016, 2 days after Thanksgiving, Lisa Guy went out shopping for groceries at their local Walmart. At 3 p.m. the same day, her son, Joel Jr., was seen shopping in the same Walmart, buying bandages and chemicals. The next day, Sunday, November 27, 2016, Joel Jr. left the Knoxville house to seek medical aid for cuts he had sustained on his hand, driving back to Baton Rouge to be seen at the student clinic. On their own, neither action was suspicious. But on Monday, November 28th, Lisa Guy failed to show up for work. Her boss, Jennifer Whited, began to worry. The company Lisa worked for was throwing her a retirement party, and she was missing it. She wasn't answering her home phone nor her mobile. Worried for Lisa's safety, Jennifer placed a call to 911, asking for Knox County police officers to do a welfare check on the Guy family.
Knoxville Police Communications Center. Yes, I have an employee that has not reported for work today, and highly unlike her. I've tried calling her home number, I've tried calling cell phone, and can't get a hold of her. What can we do about that? Can somebody go by and check on them?
Yeah, do you know her address?
I do.
What is that?
It is Golden View Lane. And they do have a dog named Jake. I think he's a big baby.
Okay. How old is she, do you know?
She is in her, I think, late 50s.
Do you know if she has any medical issues?
No, I mean, she has high blood pressure, but that's all. That's all that I know of. Yeah, I know that their house is for sale, and they are moving, and she is leaving our company, but that's supposed to be Friday, and this definitely isn't like her just not to show up.
Okay. All right, I'll send a call over to officers, have them swing by and check on her. And if anything changes before then, just give us a call back here, okay?
At the same number?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The officer undertaking the welfare check was Stephen Ballard, who went up to the Guy's family home and rang the doorbell, but did not receive a response. He went around to the back of the house, but Lisa's boss remained concerned. An hour or two later, she called 911 a second time to ask for another welfare check. Detective Stephen Ballard went a second time to the house, this time with Detective Jeremy McCord. Looking through the window, they saw groceries, including perishable items such as milk and bacon, scattered all over the floor, and even though the house was for sale, there was no real estate agent lock on the door. They also noted that the back doorknob was missing. Ballard and McCord eventually gained access through the garage door. As they entered, they felt an intense heat. This was the first chilling sign of the horror that lay within.
There were 3 cases of beer, perishables, there was breakfast meat, stuff like that in bags that you could just see sitting there. And then immediately to the right is a formal dining room that had a large amount of long guns laying there. I think there was a red velvet cake at the end of the table. It's just stuck out. And
so taking into account everything you've witnessed thus far, the circumstances present outside as well as what you observed inside, how are you feeling at this point?
It's terrifying because you don't know if somebody needs some help. I mean, it's just an odd situation. There's nothing downstairs that I'm observing that makes sense to me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we go through houses and we clear houses regularly, and most of the time, if you encounter something, you kind of know right when you get in. This was a very different situation because once we get upstairs, it's like the world does a 180. Okay. Everything gets turned upside down.
Inside the house, there were guns lined up on the dining room table. The smell of chemicals in the house was so strong that Ballard said his forehead was tingling in the toxic air.
I actually feel a tingling on my forehead from the time that I entered the home. As we continue on and start up the steps, the heat is more intense. It seems to be getting hotter.
Disturbed by these signs, they feared the worst. And upstairs, their fears were confirmed. The officers found a horrifying sight. A pair of human hands lying at the end of the hallway.
I see a human hand. It was lying in an upright position with another human hand that was closed fist behind it.
And downstairs, something even worse waited in the kitchen. The officers had entered a true horror show. Realizing they could not proceed without backup, they left the property. There was no one physically present in the house, no one alive. Backup was soon called, and forensic investigators arrived at the scene. On entering the house, they saw a large stock pot sat on the stovetop, which was hot. The forensics team also found reddish-brown stains up the stairs, on the walls, and on the banister. But the most grisly evidence of all was found in the bathroom. In addition to a weapon in the bathroom sink, they found 2 blue tubs that contained liquid and pieces of flesh. Nearly every room of the home was filled with evidence. Chemicals and weapons lay about the house, and blood was found everywhere. But the occasional third resident, their son, Joel Jr., was nowhere to be found in the house. He was still alive. The police placed Joel Jr. under surveillance. As the only survivor, he became the only suspect and was apprehended on Tuesday, November 29, 2016 in Baton Rouge. A meat grinder was found in the trunk of his car. So what happened to Lisa and Joel Guy Sr.? It was clear they had been killed, and their own son was the number one suspect. But why? In a backpack inside the house, officers found a startling piece of evidence: a black notebook used by Joel Jr. This notebook was the key to the deaths of Lisa and Joel Guy Sr. In fact, he had written checklists detailing equipment he needed and steps he would have to take in order to kill his parents.
Minimize things I touch throughout visit. Wear gloves and socks to prevent fingerprints and footprints. Drop something down the garbage disposal to break it. Get him on the ground fixing it. Clean up mess from him before she gets home. Bring blender and food grinder. Grind meat.
The notebook, nicknamed the Book of Premeditation, showed that Joel Jr. had been planning this murder for days, if not weeks. As early as November 7th, nearly 20 days before the murders, CCTV footage shows Joel Jr. shopping for items he would later use for the murders, such as hydrogen peroxide.
This is video of the male subject entering our grocery vestibule on November 26, 2016 at 3:26 p.m.
His internet history similarly shows searches for different chemicals, such as sodium percarbonate, the active ingredient in OxyClean. Joel's plan was to end the lives of both of his parents and make it look like his father had done it. Joel Jr. planned to clean the crime scene and partially burn the house in an attempt to destroy evidence. He also wrote notes about the temperature of the house, stating that he would turn the thermostat up as high as it would go to further remove any evidence of his heinous crimes. As these pieces of evidence were revealed, the timeline of events began to become clear.
And here's one from November 26, 2016 at 12:18, 18 minutes after noon at the 10,900 Parkside Drive, Walmart, detailing the items purchased are consistent with what was observed and documented at the Golden View address in the foyer.
On Saturday, November 26th, Lisa Guy went shopping. Left at home with his father, Joel Jr. attacked Joel Sr. in the upstairs exercise room. Police officers noted that the room was a mess, suggesting Joel Sr. fought for his life, but his son overpowered him and attacked him with a knife over 40 times. Lisa Guy arrived home just after midday. She walked into the house carrying the groceries she had just bought with no idea of the horror she was returning to. Perhaps she heard a sound from upstairs or saw some signs of her son's violent turn. She dropped the groceries all over the floor and ran upstairs. But she was too late to save her husband. Instead, her son attacked and killed her. She sustained at least 31 stab wounds. Joel placed his mother's head in a stock pot and set it on the stove, turning the stock pot on so his mother's head would boil. Having obtained a deep cut on his left thumb during the attack on his father, Joel Jr. left the scene to go to Walmart, where he was seen at 3:30 p.m. buying bandages, ointment, and more chemicals. It had been just over 3 hours since Lisa Guy was in Walmart buying groceries for the family. Now, Joel Jr. was shopping in the same Walmart, and both his mother and father were dead. Tragically, upon hearing the news that her daughter had been murdered, Lisa Guy's elderly mother collapsed and was taken to the hospital. She died the day before her daughter's funeral. Lisa's brother stated in court that his mom was heartbroken.
But to find out your daughter was murdered by your own grandchild was heartbreaking. My mother died. There are 3 deaths on your hand, on Joe Michael Guy Jr.'s hands. On that day, I lost my family. My mother is gone. My sister is gone. The world has forever changed. The impact of this crime is notorious. My grandchildren's grandchildren will be able to read about this horrible, disgusting crime. We will never, ever be the same.
The evidence stacked up against Joel Jr. as the case came to trial, yet he pleaded not guilty. Evidence from family and from Joel Jr.'s notebook showed that his motive was financial. Joel Guy Jr. had been financially supported by his parents for his whole life, with Lisa working tirelessly in order to give the majority of her paychecks to her son. Yet as they were nearing their retirement, the couple decided it was time for their 28-year-old son to stand on his own 2 feet and planned to cut him off financially. Joel Jr. had guessed what was happening and was not happy. Realizing that his parents would no longer support him, Joel hatched a plan. He thought that if both of his parents were dead, he would be able to access their $500,000 life insurance policy. On top of this, Joel Jr. would have access to his parents' other assets, such as their cars and their boat. For most of us, hurting any of our family members is inconceivable. But Joel Jr. not only killed the 2 people who loved and supported him the most, but he did it for money. Joel Sr.'s family members took to the stand to confirm he had been planning to cut his son off financially. Joel Sr. had been planning to tell Joel Jr. that coming Christmas, which the family would have celebrated in their new Seguinsville home, had their lives not been cut tragically short.
Well, the week before, they were at the house and we were talking about what they were going to do, and they said that they were going to wait till Christmas to talk to Joel Michael, that they were going to have him to start paying his bills and stuff.
And this was a close family. They like to talk. And they discuss these plans, and you just can bet that Lisa Guy, who was Mr. Joel Guy Jr.'s biggest fan, his enabler, his supporter, you know that she told him. She had to tell him in advance what he was in for, what was coming up for him. You know that happened. If they're talking about it with Michelle and Angela and Joel Sr.'s sisters in October and November, you know that the defendant knew about it, and you know that his mother told him. So he knew what was coming. And he's smart. He's smart enough to know that once his mom retires, once she quits her job, that insurance money is gone. He isn't getting that. He's not getting that. And he's not used to supporting himself. He's used to having the support and care from his mother, primarily, taking care of his needs, providing him with an apartment, with utilities, with a car, gas money, paying his bills, his tuition, paying for his books, paying for everything. He's used to having her pay for everything. And he wasn't about to let them cut him off.
A further grim detail was explained by Michelle Tyler, Joel Jr.'s half-sister. She stated that she had seen the blue containers in Joel Michael Jr.'s car during their Thanksgiving celebrations, 2 days before the murders. These blue containers would be the ones into which Joel Jr. would place chemicals and parts of his parents' bodies. Day 2 of the trial, Tuesday, September 29th, saw footage of Joel Jr. in Walmart, just hours after the deaths of his parents, where he was purchasing bandages and plasters to put over the cut on his thumb he sustained after he attacked his dad.
On the video, you can see that he has what appears to be bandages covering some type of injury on his right and left hands.
More photos and videos from this house of horrors were also shown. The pot that contained Lisa Guy's head was also shown to the court. Multiple items in the house used for the murder had Joel Jr.'s fingerprints on them. Officers came to the stand to further describe what they found. One officer described the smell, stating that he would never be able to get that smell out of his head. Throughout these graphic descriptions, Joel Jr. sat emotionless, not reacting to the horrific testimonies being given by Knox County police officers.
In a case where somebody is charged with premeditated murder, and I've tried many premeditated homicides, usually you have to put premeditation together circumstantially. And many times I have argued to a jury that you will have to put facts A, B, C, D, and E together to prove this element of premeditation. It's not like you'll have a notebook or an outline or a diary entry that's going to tell you every time. And how ironic that I finally got a case where I have that. That's exactly what we have. We have basically what amounts to a diary that outlines a plan of intention to kill. And we have a motive.
Each new detail presented in court revealed the depths of Joel's cruelty. On the third day of the trial, a further forensic investigator described how they removed the liquefying bodies from the property, describing the way the flesh of Joel Guy Sr.'s head had been entirely eaten away by the acid solution, leaving it skeletonized. Joel Jr.'s only friend and old roommate also spoke to the jury. Michael McCracken, who met Joel Jr. at school, had been friends with Joel for nearly 10 years. He described Joel Jr. as a socially awkward person who was becoming more of a recluse the older he got. A phone call between the two after Joel Jr. had been arrested was played for the court, in which Joel said that Michael was the only good thing in his life.
I don't know what to say. All of that aside, I am angry and lost and confused and disappointed and upset and mourning you like your day, but I'm talking to you on the phone and I don't. It's taking everything I have to process and maintain my sanity. I think of you all the time. You were the only good thing in my life. All the crap in the apartment. You're the only thing I'll miss.
Joel Jr. had sat through the delivery of horrific evidence and the heartbreaking testimonies from family and friends of his murdered parents. Yet this moment, seeing his best friend in court, was the only time Joel Jr. showed emotion in the trial. The fourth day of the trial, a Thursday, saw the beginning of deliberations. Joel Guy Jr. turned down the opportunity to testify, and the charges against him were read out again.
Feel like you've been given enough advice from us and your own thinking to make a decision? Yes. And have you made a decision? Yes. And what is that?
And you do understand, if you wanted to, regardless of what your attorneys advise you, that you certainly could. That decision is completely yours. You understand that, Mr. Guy? And so it's your decision, after being informed and discussing this with your attorneys, to not testify in this case. Is that correct? All right, thank you, sir.
Finally, on Friday, October 2nd, 2020, Joel Guy Jr. was found guilty on all charges, including 2 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of first-degree felony murder, and 2 counts of abuse of a corpse. Joel was found unanimously guilty on all 7 counts, with over 700 pieces of evidence shown to the court. Joel Michael Guy Jr. remains in prison and is incarcerated at the Northwest Correctional Complex in Tiptonville, Tennessee. His sentence will last for 124 years, and he'll be eligible for parole on April 30th, 2136. What are your thoughts on this tragic and heartbreaking story? Do you think anything could have been done to prevent these murders? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Wealthy couple Tex and Diane had it all. A luxury condo, an 85-acre ranch, and a $60,000 diamond engagement ring. But the privileged pair were not perfect. One hot night in September 20...
I realized it was in my lap, right? And it went off.
Claude L. McIver III, known as Tex, was born in Texas in 1943. Not much is clear about his childhood, and we know he was ambitious enough to graduate the University of Texas with a law degree in 1968. He went on to practice law in the state of Georgia, becoming a partner at a prestigious firm. He was also involved in politics. Over the years, Tex's profile had grown to the extent that he was appointed to the State Board of Elections by the governor. He was a prominent Republican and was also a member of the American Bar Association's Standing Committee on Gun Violence. Tex's wife, Diane, was an influential person in her own right. Born in Auburn, Alabama in 1953, she had had an unhappy childhood, fighting constantly with her mother. She left home as soon as she turned 18 and soon entered the world of business. Under the mentorship of businessman Billy Corey, she went from answering the phones at his company to becoming its president. This meteoric rise was celebrated by everyone around her. She was an efficient leader known for getting things done. She would wake up at 5 a.m. to exercise before work and even kept weights in her office while working on the company's high-profile advertising contracts. Together, the pair made quite the power couple. But how did they meet? Around the turn of the millennium, Diane had moved into the affluent Buckhead Heights area in Atlanta, specifically in a luxury complex called The Villa. One day, shortly after she moved in, a note was slipped under Diane's door while she was at work. One of her best friends, cosmetologist Danny Jo Carter, was in the apartment at the time and read the note out to her over the phone. It was from Tex, who was also living in the building, welcoming her to the neighborhood. Diane and Tex had both already been married and divorced to other people. Tex's divorce had been so bitter that he rarely spoke to 2 of his 3 grown children. He had not even been invited to his daughter's wedding. Diane, still smarting from her own divorce, had reservations about getting into a new relationship. When Tex asked her out, she said no. This happened more than once. Diane told him she wanted to focus on her career, but Tex was persistent. Finally, she agreed to have dinner with him at his apartment. She wore workout clothes and a baseball hat, which suggested she wasn't that enthusiastic about the date. But Tex soon won her over, and they started a relationship. Tex leased out his apartment and bought the one next to Diane's. They tore down the wall between the 2 units, creating one super apartment to live in together, reflective of their wealth and status. She also spent a lot of time with him on his 85-acre cattle ranch in Putnam County. Throughout all of this, Danny Joe Carter remained Diane's closest friend, to the extent that when Tex decided he wanted to propose, it was Danny he turned to for advice on the ring, which contained a $60,000 diamond. In 2005, Diane and Tex got married. They were 52 and 62 respectively. They had a country wedding at their ranch where guests sat on hay bales and Tex wore his Texas cowboy boots. Then they embarked on what to all initial appearances looked sure to be a successful marriage. They worked well together. They shared the same politics and frequently donated large amounts to Republican campaigns and causes. They both loved the outdoors and spent a lot of time at the ranch together. But the ranch was also a source of conflict in their marriage. Diane and Tex had a godson, Austin Schwall, who was born in 2006. The couple treated him like a son of their own. He was often with them at their ranch and their condo. Towards the latter half of their marriage, Diane started to suggest she wanted to name Austin in her will. Priority would still go to Tex, but if he predeceased her, she wanted her holdings to go into a trust for Austin instead of Tex's biological children from his first marriage. In 2011, Diane and Tex met with their estate lawyer to discuss this new will. Email chains made it clear that they'd been arguing about it. Diane emailed Tex to tell him there was no point in meeting the lawyer until they'd agreed on what they were going to do. He emailed back, "Upon what do we not agree?" She responded that I am not going to leave my half of the ranch to your estate. She expanded upon this in another email. For you to die before me and allow me to live there until I die and then turn it over to your estate is not an option for me. In 2015, Diane asked her friend and receptionist Rachel Sykes to copy a document for her.
She called me in her office and said, I need you to make some copies of these papers. I cannot trust anyone else. So I proceeded to the copy room and I made the copies and I went back and handed them to her and she says, thank you so much. This is my new will.
What this new will actually contained, we don't know. It was never found. But Diane's intentions were clear. She didn't want her assets to go to Tex's children. And in making this will, she had threatened their position and gone against Tex's wishes. 10 years into their marriage, tensions were rising between the couple. Danny Joe Carter witnessed an argument between the husband and wife a few months before Diane's death. Their godson, Austin, the subject of all the contention around the will, was visiting with them at their ranch and he burned his finger. Diane and Tex got into an argument about it.
It was very heated and Diane was saying that there was nothing wrong with him, and I was focused mainly on Austin because I knew how bad his finger was hurting because I burned my finger before like that. And Diane was saying he was all right. Tex was trying to get Diane to be quiet, and they they shoved each other, and Tex kind of pushed Diane out of the bedroom and closed the door.
This was one of the only times Danny had witnessed an altercation between Diane and Tex. It was a sign that things were escalating. Still, no one could have imagined how their marriage would end. It was a hot weekend in September 2016. Diane and Tex were spending time at their ranch riding and playing golf. They were hosting Danny Joe Carter, who was their frequent guest, and on the Sunday evening they went out for dinner together. They went to Longhorn Steakhouse in Conyers with one of Diane's co-workers. They ordered a bottle of wine and Diane drank a few glasses. Tex had one glass. Danny, who didn't drink, volunteered to drive them back to the ranch. So at around 9:30 p.m. that evening, Danny got into the driver's seat of Diane and Tex's Ford Expedition. Diane was in the passenger seat and Tex was in the back directly behind Diane. The 73-year-old man soon drifted off to sleep. It had been a long, hot day on the golf course and he'd had a glass of wine. The two women chatted in the front of the car, but they were frustrated when backed-up traffic slowed down their journey back to Buckhead, which should have only taken about 40 minutes. 25 minutes into the journey, Danny decided to exit the congested I-20 at Edgewood Avenue, hoping to avoid the traffic. They turned left and entered an underpass, at which point Tex woke up.
And I came up and I said, "Girls, where are we and what's happening here?" Right. We were clearly off our path. Right. And that's my first voice.
Tex was alarmed by their surroundings.
We went through an area, I could describe my familiarity with it, but we went through an area I thought that was particularly dangerous. It was an underpass. That's one that has a particularly high population of homeless people, at least in the daytime. But at night, there were a lot of people there. Okay. And I quickly said, this is a big mistake, and we're in a place that we don't belong. Right. And of course, here we are in an almost new SUV and two women in the front seat. Right. So anyway, they made a couple turns, and things were not going well. I said, "We'll be on Piedmont shortly." And I said, "I'd like to, if you don't mind, please hand me my gun."
Danny remembers this too.
Was anything spoken at that intersection?
Yes.
What?
Tex asked Diane, he said, "Darling, would you hand me my gun?"
That summer of 2016, Atlanta had been rocked by Black Lives Matter protests. Tex was a prominent white attorney who, together with Diane, had founded a series of Blue Lives Matter billboards across the city. He remained nervous about unrest. This, he later claimed, was why he asked for the gun, and fatefully, Diane gave it to him. Tex described the moment.
I was in the center console. We've had some break-ins in our office where the only thing they're looking for seems to be a gun. And so in response to that, I had wrapped my gun in a Publix grocery sack. So if you open the console, you had no clue what you're looking at, rather than a flashlight and some stuff like that. So Diane reaches in, pulls it out, hands it back to me, and by then we may have been on Piedmont. Anyway, I'm relatively satisfied that we're out of that kind of area. Right. And I guess I just laid back again and went to sleep. Okay. This Twilight Zone kind of thing. Right. Had a weapon in my lap. Okay. And then what do you remember next happening? Danny Joe came to a stop, and anyway, I just time to wake up. But she came to a stop, and I was handling the gun. And I realized it was in my lap, right, and it went off.
Tex had shot his wife in the back. Danny didn't realize what had happened immediately.
I heard a big boom, and I didn't know what it was. I thought there was an explosion somewhere, but my head turned to the right, and I looked out the window and wondered where there was an explosion or if somebody behind us was getting ready to hit us or something had happened behind us. I did not realize that it was a gunshot.
Tex made no effort to deny what he had done. The gun was quite literally smoking in his hands. They sped to a hospital where Diane was rushed into surgery, but she was still unconscious, and when asked if she wanted to see her husband, she said no. Diane died in surgery. She had told doctors that it was an accident, but was she telling the truth? Or was this the final act of devotion from a woman who loved her husband despite it all to protect him from the consequences of what he might have done? Had she been murdered? A nurse at the hospital overheard something suspicious from Danny and Tex that night. They were huddled in a corner as if they were conspiring. She heard Tex say this.
This is what you're going to tell them.
Could them be the police? Was he asking Danny to lie for him? Witnesses reported that around the time of Diane's death, Tex appeared curiously unemotional. A few days before Diane's memorial service, he commented to a friend on the state of an ex's relationship.
All he said was he didn't think she was happy with her husband, who was less, and that maybe he could get her back.
Only weeks after the final shooting, Tex was already talking about starting new relationships. This was strange behavior for a man who had supposedly just lost the love of his life. He also began to arrange estate sales of Diane's belongings even within the first few weeks after the shooting. And he kept a pistol in his sock drawer despite a judge ordering him to surrender his firearms. This was at least in character. Tex had always been big into guns, but it had implications for this case too. The gun that had killed Diane was a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson. If the hammer was cocked, the gun would only have required 2¼ pounds of pressure to fire, effectively a hair trigger. If it had been cocked, then Tex's story of an accident might be credible. But if the hammer had been uncocked, the trigger would have required over 5 times that pressure. The truth remained unclear. But a gun expert said this.
It was either intentional or the result of just incredible stupidity and irresponsibility. The only time you should have your finger on the trigger is when you are ready to fire and you are sure of your target.
Tex, for whom shooting was a hobby, should have known this. It was enough to cast doubt on his story, and he had been involved in a shooting before. In 1990, Tex was indicted for aggravated assault. He'd returned home to the house he shared with his first wife to find strangers loitering in an SUV in their cul-de-sac. When he went out to confront them with his handgun, they drove toward him. He fired what he told police were warning shots, 2 of which hit the passenger side of the car. No one was injured, and the charges were dropped after Tex agreed to pay restitution. But it struck prosecutors as an alarming pattern. Tex had been around guns all his life and wasn't afraid to use them. How then could this tragic shooting of his wife have happened? And why? They turned to the matter of the will and money in general. Diane was a highly successful business executive and Tex was a high-flying lawyer. But he had wound up owing his wife $350,000. He had borrowed the money to build a $1.3 million barn on their ranch and had not paid it back, though it had been due with interest in December 2014. When Diane was killed, he inherited $4 million. Could money have been a factor in the shooting? No one denied that Tex McIver had shot his wife. The question was whether he'd done it deliberately. He was brought to trial in 2018, and the prosecution called dozens of witnesses, many who testified to his strangely unconcerned behavior following the shooting. They also played a voicemail recording Tex had left for Danny's husband, urging her to stop talking to the police and to make a public statement in support of his innocence.
let me just be plain. Danny is about to send me to prison. Please erase this voicemail message, but call me right away. Y'all have no idea the problem this is causing. It's innocent, but it's absolutely nuclear for me.
The voicemail suggested he knew he was guilty, and he was afraid of the consequences. In 2018, the jury agreed. Tex was convicted of felony murder and sentenced to life in prison at the age of 75. But this wasn't the end of the story. In 2022, the conviction was overturned on the basis that the jury should have had the option of a misdemeanor involuntary manslaughter charge. In other words, the higher Georgia court believed that the shooting had been an accident after all. Tex faced a retrial for felony murder, but in January 2024, he took a plea deal, pleading guilty to involuntary manslaughter.
Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses by entering a plea of guilty here today?
Yes.
And is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you're in fact guilty?
Yes.
The plea deal meant that Tex was sentenced to 8 years in prison, including time served. That means he'll be released by 2025. However, he is immediately eligible for parole, so he could be released even sooner. What are your thoughts on this tragic story? Was the court right to overturn Tex's conviction? Do you believe it was an accident, or has he gotten away with murder?
Calm down.
Police body cameras capture the moments after the caller, Chasey Pointer, dialed 911.
What's going on? My husband, he went to go help me. My Jeep is stuck in the back around the corner, and he's been shot in the head, please. That's my husband's blood.
Just breathe for me.
That's my husband's blood on me.
What's his name?
Robert Pointer.
This is Chasey Pointer. In 2016, she was 29. She'd been married to Bob Pointer, who was 18 years her senior, for 7 years. On September 9th, she met with Bob on a muddy back road, isolated and dark. Only one of them would survive the encounter. But who was to blame for Bob's tragic death? Chasey claimed her husband had been killed at random.
What happened?
I heard a shot, and the Jeep started rolling, and I didn't see anything, and I saw a shadow. That's all I saw.
But the police were suspicious. Was she really just an innocent witness to a horrible crime? A wife traumatized by the murder of her husband? This is the chilling case of Chasey and Bob Pointer. Robert Pointer, known as Bob, was a firefighter. Despite being a tall and imposing figure, the 47-year-old was described as fun-loving and non-confrontational. He'd worked as a firefighter for nearly 20 years and had reached the rank of captain. When Hurricane Katrina struck in 2005, he was involved with relief efforts. He had 2 children from his first marriage. The first marriage to his high school sweetheart, Amy, had lasted for 19 years before it began to break down when Bob met Chasey Tyler Mormon. Chasey was born and raised in Texas. She worked in a dental office as a surgical assistant and implant coordinator, but her passion was baking. Chasey ran a cake-making business called Fabulously Frosted. She met the married Bob through a mutual friend, and despite the 18-year age gap, they hit it off immediately. He began to devote more attention to this 20-year-old at the cost of his existing marriage. Bob's daughter discovered he had a second cell phone. Chasey claimed that she didn't know Amy and Bob were still together at the time.
As far as I knew, he was separated.
One of Bob's firefighter friends, however, said that Amy pursued him. They got together in December 2007. Bob, 40, divorced Amy, and he married Chasey, who was 22. 2 years later, they had a daughter together, Addison, and moved together in Chasey's hometown of Royce City. Bob worked in nearby University Park, a peaceful, wealthy community. It was nearer home, however, that things took a dark turn for him and his marriage to Chasey. Late at night on September 9, 2016, 7 years into their marriage, 29-year-old Chasey drove her car down a rural road. Bob met her there. The next thing anyone heard from the couple was a phone call to 911.
She's pinging on Kenner at 2595, and she's extremely out of breath. She sounds like she's running.
All that could be heard was the caller's frantic breaths. Operators did not know what was going on. All they could do was send first responders to the location and wait. These first responders had no idea what sort of scene they were walking into. It was a country back lane, isolated and dark, with a service broken up by tractor ruts and fire tracks. It seemed strange that anyone would drive down this road if they weren't a farmer. At first, the responders couldn't see anyone. Perhaps the call was a crank call or a mistake. When the first responders spotted Chasey Pointer, she was barefoot and covered in mud.
What's going on?
My husband, he went to go help me. My Jeep is stuck in the back around the corner, and he's been shot in the head, please.
She appeared to be out of her mind with fear, hyperventilating. An ambulance arrived on the scene and paramedics supplied her with oxygen. They also took note of the blood spatter on her clothes, which covered her shoulder and her legs.
Tell us what happened.
I heard a shot, and the Jeep started rolling, and I didn't see anything, and I saw a shadow. That's all I saw.
Further down the road, which was pitch black at night, investigators found Chasey's Jeep. There was the silhouette of a man inside it, a man who was already dead. The figure was that of Chasey's husband, Bob Pointer. The 47-year-old firefighter had been shot in the head, but there was no sign of a struggle. In fact, the scene seemed to match up with what the young mother had told the first responders in her state of panic, that a random attacker had come out of the dark and shot her husband. But back in the ambulance, Chasey was sharing details with the police about her relationship that started to cast doubt on the story that had been told.
We've been having problems. I was coming to meet him at the Jack in the Box so we could talk.
Chasey told officers that her marriage to Bob had been on the rocks for quite some time. Her husband had just been killed, so why was she focusing on marital harmony? Chasey went on to explain that she and Bob had arranged to meet at a Jack in the Box fast food restaurant so they could talk their troubled marriage over. While driving there, she texted him to tell him she was 3 miles away. As she texted him, her Jeep got stuck in the rutted mud of the rural road she was taking. Police asked Chasey why she had taken this track, which was designed mainly for farmers to access their field and was badly lit for driving at night. She said she had missed her turn.
Gonna meet him up at the Jack in the Box. I don't ever take this road.
All right. What made you come down this one?
I missed my last one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've never been down this road before.
Now, stuck on this desolate country road, the young woman called her husband Bob for help. He didn't hesitate. As a firefighter, he was well used to coming to the rescue. Bob got into his truck and drove towards the location Chasey had described. But the road surface was too rough and the ruts too deep for his truck to make it all the way to her Jeep. Bob got out of his vehicle and approached his wife's Jeep on foot. Chasey waited on the side of the road while Bob got into the Jeep and tried to reverse it. That was when she heard the gunshot. She jumped back into the Jeep. Bob, having been shot, was no longer in control of the car, and it was rolling slowly down the road. Chasey was holding his head, she told police, which was why she was covered in blood. She put the car in park, calling his name, but Bob was already dead. Bob had been shot in the right temple. It was difficult to determine whether he had been shot from in front or behind the car. The assailant had left no clues behind. With this lack of physical evidence, the police had to focus their investigation on Chasey's story. She said she saw a man at the scene.
There was a man. There's a tall person. That's all I know.
Okay.
He was taller than me.
And what was he wearing?
Dark clothes is all I know. Dark.
Did you see any type of firearm, rifle, or anything like that in his hands?
No.
Was Chasey telling the truth, or did she know more than she was letting on?
I was young and stupid when we got married. I didn't want to be married anymore.
What do y'all fight over?
My daughter. He's trying to take my daughter away from me.
Why would he try to take your daughter away? Like, what reason did he
Because
give you?
he knows that that's what's going to hurt me the most.
As the police questioned her back at the station, the now widowed Chasey kept on returning to the state of her marriage.
I loved him. I really did love him. We've had a lot of issues in our marriage.
It was becoming eerily clear that though she claimed her husband had been killed by a random gunman, in fact, Chasey herself had a motive for Bob's murder. Though Chasey and Bob's marriage had begun with passionate mutual infatuation, 3 years after their wedding, it had begun to decay. They slept in separate bedrooms, and Chasey believed Bob was still in love with his first wife. She also claimed he had a temper. He had low testosterone levels and was taking medication to supplement it, which, according to Chasey, led to violent outbursts.
There would just be times, he would grab me by my hair. I could get thrown up against the wall.
Bob's family with his first wife denied that he could be capable of hurting anyone. His daughter Natalie had lived with Bob and Chasey for 6 months when she was 16, and she said she never saw him become violent in that time. Chasey refuted this.
They've never really cared for me from the beginning. I was the younger girl that came in and took their father.
Chasey said she never told anyone about the way Bob treated her because she didn't want to jeopardize his job as a fire captain, which gave him an important role in the community. Instead, she began to seek validation elsewhere. A few years into their marriage, Chasey lost 104 pounds and started going out more. This was when Natalie, Bob's teenage daughter, found evidence on Chasey's computer that she'd been talking to other men. Bob frequently worked overnight shifts at the firehouse, giving Chasey ample opportunity to go out and meet men, leaving Natalie and her then 4-year-old half-sister alone in the house. When Natalie finally told her father that he was being cheated on, he drew up the paperwork for divorce but never followed through on filing it. He didn't want to break up his family a second time. Still, Bob was now suspicious of Chasey. He installed a security camera by the front door to catch her in the act, and 12 days before his murder, he succeeded. One of Chasey's lovers rang the doorbell. Chasey ran to answer it, telling him he had to leave immediately. But it was too late. Bob knew. For the police, 2 different pictures were emerging of Bob and Chasey Pointer's marriage. That their relationship had been strained, in danger of collapse, was not in question. But which story was true? Had Bob been a violent, distant husband, or was Chasey unfaithful? Either way, one thing was certain. No matter how much Chasey denied it, the breakdown of their relationship had something to do with Bob's mysterious killing. The week before his death, the couple had gone on a trip to Mexico to try to work things out. But when they returned, Bob told a coworker that it had ended disastrously. He reportedly said regarding the marriage, "I just can't do this anymore." This was Wednesday, September 7th. On Friday, September 9th, Bob was murdered. Chasey said she'd been at a friend's house that night before leaving to meet up with Bob at the restaurant.
Whose house was that?
Michael Garza.
Are you and Michael Garza dating or anything like that? Do y'all have a relationship?
Yes.
She'd been having a relationship with Michael Garza since that same summer after meeting him on Facebook. Michael Garza, 37, was a truck driver. He'd spent a year in prison in 2000 for the unauthorized use of a vehicle. But he had no recorded history of violent behavior. Still, police were suspicious. If Bob's killer had been a random stranger as Chasey claimed, why would the killer let her escape alive? The evidence, contrary to her story, suggested she knew the killer. In interrogation, the police pushed her.
I think you're full of crap.
I'm telling you, I don't know who pulled the trigger.
See, I think you do, and that's the problem.
No, I don't.
Finally, 2 hours in, Chasey's story crumbled.
Who killed your husband? Who shot Robert? Can you say that louder for me, please?
I did.
Mikey could only be one person, Michael Garza. Chasey's lover had murdered her husband. Close to being implicated in the crime herself, Chasey now changed her story.
I just don't want to. I want him to know what it's like to be bullied all the time.
Chasey said that she had planned for Garza to scare Bob into leaving her alone. As the story went, she hadn't intended for Bob to get hurt, and she didn't realize that Garza had brought a shotgun with him. It was Garza's plan to lure Bob to the rural country road, she said, and she could never have expected what he planned to do. They went there together, and she asked Bob to come get her. Then, before she could stop him, Garza killed Bob. The police didn't believe this story, not least because Garza had no history of violence. But there was more. Just a few months earlier, Chasey had convinced Bob to make her the primary beneficiary of his $685,000 life insurance policy. The day before his death, September 8th, he had contacted a divorce attorney on Facebook telling them, "I'm thinking of a surprise attack." This attack entailed putting their house up for sale and taking custody of their daughter. Chasey couldn't let him do this. She solicited sympathy from her lovers by telling them Bob was abusive. The lover caught in the security footage, Brad Golden, was interrogated too.
I'm telling you, man, this girl was good at what she did. She always told me that Robert was abusive to her.
8 days before the murder, she texted a third lover, Danny Mims, saying about Bob that I wish he'd run out of air in a fire. Mims replied, "I'm not a magician." To that, Chasey texted back, "Well, I need one." Each of these lovers refused to do what she wanted, to kill her husband for her. Each of them, that is, except Michael Garza. She texted Garza from Mexico saying, "He's coming after me sooner or later." Garza responded, "F him. No, I will shoot that dude." And the day before the murder, the day Bob contacted a divorce lawyer, she texted Garza and said, "I've made up my mind." The evidence was mounting that Chasey herself had arranged the murder. On September 10th, the day after Bob's death, the 29-year-old widow was arrested. In court, she did not take the stand, but jurors were shown police body cam footage and interrogation tapes. These tapes included a final incriminating moment. Chasey alone in the interview room with her head in her hands. Michael Garza was sentenced to 99 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Chasey Pointer, too, was found guilty of murder. She was sentenced to life in prison. She'll be eligible for parole in 30 years' time when she is 59. To this day, Chasey maintains that she never intended her husband to die. What are your thoughts on this disturbing story? Did Garza really act to kill Bob on his own, or did Chasey plan for her husband to die? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Let go of me. Let go of me. Come on. Let go of me. Okay. Come on, boy. Let go of me.
This is Courtney Clinny, otherwise known as Courtney Taylor, a popular fitness influencer and OnlyFans model. Pictured here in Aspen in 2022, she was arguing with her then-boyfriend, Christian Tobiobumseli. She was accusing him of being interested in other girls. He was denying it, and the argument was escalating.
Let's put her on the phone right now.
I dare you.
Yeah, you dare me? Keep saying
You
it.
do it.
Then stop saying it then.
Do it.
Then stop saying it then. Sure,
Do you
listen to
see
that.
how instigative he is?
No, you're telling me I touched her breast yesterday when I.
Yo, you're dumb as I actually don't agree with you. Actually, I'm done. You get the out of here. Just leave your house.
This was a relationship filled with aggression, a ticking time bomb. The signs were all there that it would end explosively, but no one could have expected that only weeks later, Christian would be dead, and lawyers would be going over every interaction between the couple, like this one, to work out why. Did Christian slap Courtney in this video? Or did Courtney slap Christian? Was his dabbing Courtney's act of self-defense? or her final blow in a campaign of abuse. Restraining orders, elevator fights, and a pattern of aggression. This is the story of Courtney Clenny and Christian Obumseli. Courtney Clenny was born in Texas in 1996. According to her IMDb page, she grew up passionate about entertaining others and aspired to be an actress. In 2016, she had a minor role in a Richard Linklater film, Everybody Wants Some. This turned out to be the limit of her Hollywood career. She turned instead to social media, becoming a fitness influencer and Instagram model. She had over 2 million followers and earned enough money through OnlyFans, according to her fellow influencer, to rent her apartment for $10,000 a month. Though she hadn't achieved the acting success she dreamed of, she was certainly living a high-profile life. Courtney had also been mixing with high-profile people. In 2016, she was training at Gold's Gym in Venice, California, in preparation for the National Physique Committee bikini modeling competition. There, Courtney met Sean Roden, a professional bodybuilder who himself had over 2 million followers on Instagram. According to a fellow bodybuilder, the two began a romantic relationship, but Roden was married at the time. Courtney apparently wasn't aware of this, and when she learned that he'd been hiding his marriage from her in February 2017, she allegedly hit him with an uppercut that broke his jaw. It seems startling to imagine that this slight, if strong model, 21 years younger than Roden, could be responsible for his serious injury. But Roden's broken jaw was well documented in the press in the run-up to his next Mr. Olympia competition.
I broke my jaw. My jaw was wide shut.
He gave no reason for this injury, and this early alleged incident may have been a frightening precursor of what was to come. Courtney apparently also had a type. Weeks before Christian's death, she appeared on the podcast We in Miami, where she made jokes about her dating life.
You look like the type of girl that only dates like rich guys. Is that true?
No, that's not true. I only date black guys, especially black guys. Let me clarify. I only date rich black guys.
Rich black guys. There we go.
She agreed when the host said she sounded toxic in her relationships.
So that sounds like you're a control freak with your relationships. Be careful with this one. She's going to boss you around like...
Exactly. Sweet toxicity.
Christian Obumseli couldn't have known what he was himself getting into. Relationship history aside, Courtney had a wild past. She had 2 DUI arrests in Texas, the first when she was only 18. The second, which had occurred in 2020, she was found to be more than 3 times over the legal limit. She crashed her Mercedes into another car with an empty bottle of tequila found in the front seat. Her substance abuse was a troubling sign of reckless behavior. It was only shortly after this, in late 2020, that Courtney met Christian through the Austin nightlife scene and hit it off with him. Their relationship progressed quickly, concerningly quickly according to a friend of them both. Courtney began to display allegedly possessive behavior. The friend said that she would disappear when the group of friends was at dinner, forcing him to leave them and meet her somewhere. She was always pulling him away to fight about something, the friend said. Everyone around the couple agreed that they had a tumultuous relationship. Christian was a year older than Courtney, also a Texas native who'd studied communications at college. As a result, he had the know-how to act as her assistant in her influencer career. This led to financial disputes between the two. Courtney had allegedly said that she didn't want to share her money with him, but he was apparently working for her, managing her schedule, and helping out with her photo shoots. As payment, they'd supposedly agreed that he would be given a percentage of her OnlyFans income. Whether he was actually receiving this was unclear. The differences in their status meant Courtney used her money to treat Christian. She bought him expensive gifts, such as a set of Louis Vuitton luggage. However, friends say this was to make up for the time she allegedly mistreated him. When they were living in Austin, she allegedly once threw his suitcases from the balcony of their shared apartment. The Louis Vuitton luggage was apparently recompense. But Christian had his own troubled online history. Tweets recently resurfaced from 2012 in which he made derogatory and misogynistic comments about black women. While the tweets were posted 10 years beforehand, after his death, they created an online outcry. His brother Jeffrey wrote on his now private Instagram page, "As a family, we strongly disagree with the ignorant and repulsive tweets from my then high school-aged brother that have recently surfaced. However, the tweets do not diminish our demand for a thorough investigation into Christian's murder or negate the necessity for justice." Courtney was also facing backlash. A stranger confronted her in a hotel lobby.
You should go. Yeah, you should go. Because you just lost your boyfriend. Yeah, you did.
One thing was clear: the outcome of this case, like many domestic cases before it, would be decided in the public eye. So what actually happened? Shortly before 5 p.m. on Sunday, April 3, 2022, Miami police received a 911 call.
My boyfriend is dying of a stabbing. Ma'am, what is the address? I got a guy can't get my arm. Baby, I'm so sorry.
The caller was Courtney Clinny. The other voice in the background was Christian Obumseli. Police arrived on the scene to find 27-year-old Christian bleeding from a severe stab wound to the shoulder. 26-year-old Courtney was still there, covered in her boyfriend's blood. Police cuffed her hands behind her back, and she sat on the floor as they questioned her, seen here in shaky camera footage obtained by a neighbor. Courtney was taken into custody and interrogated. She had been the only other person in the apartment other than the couple's dog, and she was covered in blood. Nor did she deny that she had been the one to hurt Christian.
I grabbed my knife and I said, "Don't come anywhere closer to me." I had absolutely no intention of using it. It's coming at me, and I threw it.
Courtney claimed that this was the last blow in a fight that had lasted all evening, a fight in which he had hit her and choked her.
But if he's like choking me or like pinning me or something and I can't breathe, he might go too long.
She said she'd thrown the knife at him as a last resort in self-defense, that he might have killed her otherwise. But there was already doubt about Courtney's story. Evidence of Christian's wound revealed it had been caused by a close contact stab, not a knife that had been thrown at him. A few hours later, Christian died of his injury. Police told Courtney during her interview, and she had an extreme reaction.
"We have to inform you that Christian did not make it. Okay. Unfortunately, the doctors did what they could, and
Christian is dead.
Yes.
No, that's not true. That's not real, right?
It is real.
Christian is dead.
She was later placed under a psychiatric hold for the next 48 hours before returning home. She would spend the next few months at home in Texas with her family before going to Hawaii to seek mental health treatment for substance abuse issues and PTSD. While she tried to put her boyfriend's murder out of her mind, the authorities, however, were busy uncovering the truth of their relationship and her alleged pattern of behavior that led to Christian's tragic death. On the night of April 1st, just 2 days before Christian's death, police were called to a disturbance at the couple's Miami apartment. Courtney claimed that they had broken up and that Christian was stalking her, still coming to the apartment.
I want a restraining order against Christian Obumseli.
We don't issue those.
Because,
those
no, I'm
to
serious.
court.
Can I do that? Where
you have
can
to
I
go to court. You have to go
okay,
to downtown.
But how can I make
petition.
myself first?
She wanted to get a restraining order against him before he got one against her.
Like, I have not always been a victim, but like right now I'm a freaking victim in the situation.
Filmed only a few days before the altercation that ended in Christian's death, this body cam footage could lend support to Courtney's claim that Christian had been abusing her. Police found her apartment still filled with his belongings and clear signs that he was still living there, meaning they could not evict him, and shedding doubt on the claim that they had broken up. Then, earlier evidence began to emerge, and this evidence displayed a pattern. Not that Christian was abusing Courtney, but that Courtney might have been abusing Christian. This CCTV video taken in their apartment building's elevator showed Courtney hitting Christian. She was also shouting racial slurs. Friends of the couple had seen similar incidents multiple times before. One of them claimed that Courtney had once pushed Christian down the stairs at a party. Courtney's lawyer claimed that Christian had himself behaved abusively in private, but the lawyer also didn't deny that Courtney might have been abusive toward Christian. Opinions might be divided, but as the police kept digging, they found that Christian had been secretly recording his interactions with Courtney for months before his death, and they painted a horrible picture of the state of their relationship. In the recordings, Courtney appeared jealous, short-tempered, and out of control.
You literally talked to her without telling me!
Courtney, I was on a bike ride and she passed me and I said hi. Stacey, I'm sorry, okay? Just let me apologize.
No!
This seemed to be the same argument the couple had been having for months. The same argument they'd been having in that first clip filmed in Aspen. Courtney was convinced that Christian was interested in other women. Christian denied it, and indeed there was no evidence that he was cheating on her. Nor did he respond with aggression to any of her accusations or attacks in any of the footage obtained. Meanwhile, her fury with him was worsening. In 2021, Courtney was arrested at a Vegas resort for domestic battery. She had apparently thrown a glass at Christian during an argument about not going to dinner the night before. She told officers it was all her fault and that she had hit him first.
Just shut up and let me slap you!
Another secret recording taken a month before Christian's death revealed an even darker sign of what was to come. Courtney could be heard saying this.
I'm actually not having a good day where I actually literally want to kill you, but you don't take me seriously.
A tumultuous relationship was threatening to become deadly, and unearthed text messages suggested something even more shocking, that Courtney might have stabbed Christian before. He texted her, "The crazy thing about all of this is that yesterday when you stabbed me in the leg and you saw how bad it was hurting me and I couldn't walk, did I make you feel like for stabbing me? No, I just sucked it up and hope tomorrow will be better." Her response to his repeated pleas to allow him to tend to his injuries? She just told him, go to first aid. The history of their relationship was leading police to only one conclusion. In August 2022, they arrested Courtney Clinny and charged her with second-degree murder with a deadly weapon. Her lawyers claimed that she was acting in self-defense. They said she was a victim of domestic abuse and human trafficking, no doubt related to Christian's role in her OnlyFans business, but no more mention had been made of the trafficking accusation. The case has become a he said, she said scenario, with each side claiming abuse by the other. The difference is the history of material evidence supporting Christian's innocence. In fact, evidence that makes him look like nothing but a victim in this, whose life was cruelly ripped away after a sustained campaign of mistreatment. Courtney's parents have maintained her innocence, but this case is expanded to involve them too. At the end of January 2024, Kim and Deborah Clinny were arrested. According to the warrant, when they were clearing out their daughter's apartment after the stabbing, they took Christian's laptop and used it before handing it over to the authorities. We don't know what they were doing with the laptop. Were they trying to erase evidence? Or is there a more innocent explanation? Either way, the police found it suspicious. It only adds to the pile of evidence mounting against Courtney in this horrible killing. Courtney is currently being held without bond, with her trial set to begin soon. Until a verdict, we won't know for sure what happened that day in their Miami apartment. We can only speculate on the evidence available. What are your thoughts on this twisted story? Do you believe it was self-defense, or was Christian's death the last horrible act and a series of incidents of abuse.
Hi, is this a number I call for a non-emergency?
This is the dispatch center, non-emergency number. How can I help you?
I'm sorry. My daughter has been missing since last night, and I'm getting kind of worried.
This is the voice of Jennifer Weathers, otherwise known as Jennifer Jaeger. It was the summer of 2018, and she'd woken up the morning after an argument with her daughter, Megan. Now, Megan was nowhere to be found, not at home and not at work. A frantic search ensued. Jennifer seemed to do the best she could to assist the officers looking for her missing daughter. They'd argued in the car on the way home from a wedding, and this, according to Jennifer, was the last time she saw her daughter. But this didn't appear to be the whole story. What happened on that hot summer night? Did Jennifer know more than she was saying? And where was Megan? Hair pulled out by the root, inconclusive polygraph tests, and a mystery on the roadside. Let's dive into the story of Megan Cordy's disappearance. Megan Cordy was 27 years old. How the evening would end. One of the last people to see Megan alive, other than the wedding guests, was a clerk at a store near the wedding venue.
And she came in and she was in like a floral pantsuit, and I remembered it because we do have weddings down here, but it's not overly common to see a bunch of people dressed up. So I said, "Oh, that's really pretty." She said, "Thank you."
This was the afternoon before the wedding reception. It was a perfectly normal interaction. The same with this footage captured on CCTV of Megan in another store that afternoon. She was depicted running her ordinary errands. Nothing about the footage gives a sign of how the evening would end. At the wedding, she was captured in several photos with her family and friends, drinking and having fun. Jennifer, supposedly the designated driver, was also drinking. Guests reported seeing her swaying, calling her sloppy drunk. Megan, they said, did not seem intoxicated at all. Around 10:30 p.m., Megan's little daughter, Gia, began to get tired. She was only 3, so Megan had anticipated this and asked Jennifer if they could go home. This caused them to begin again the argument they'd been having the previous day. Jennifer didn't want to go home so early. They fought on the way to the car, and once they started driving, with Gia and Megan sitting in the back seat, the argument escalated. Trapped in those close quarters with each other, mother and daughter were getting nasty, taking cheap shots. As Jennifer described it, Megan decided she wanted to get out of the car to remove herself from the situation. She called her boyfriend, Brendan, asking him to come and pick her up, but he refused. He had to work early the next day. Later, he told police he could hear Megan and her mother still arguing in the background of the phone call. They were actively shouting at each other, and Megan apparently told Brendan, midway through the argument, that Jennifer was drunk. Megan hung up the phone shortly after this. Brendan would never hear from her again. Jennifer said that she had slowed the car to 5 miles per hour, which was when Megan jumped out from the back seat. Jennifer said she then stopped the car to look around for her daughter, but she couldn't see her. It was dark, and there was no street lighting in the area they found themselves in. This was the last time Jennifer saw her daughter alive. This was the story she told police when placing her non-emergency 911 call the next morning.
We were at a wedding, and she was upset and got out of the car, and I haven't heard from her since, and I haven't been able to find her. I drove around for 2 hours this morning looking for where she got out of the car, and so I don't know if I should call 911 or if I have to wait a certain amount of time.
Had found her daughter's shoes, purse, and cell phone still in the car, meaning Megan hadn't come back for them after exiting the car on that dark stretch of road the night before. These items were in the front seat of the car, a key detail we'll come back to later. Jennifer returned to the Dayton area and drove around for 2 hours searching, but she couldn't find any sign of her daughter. This was the act of a conscientious and concerned parent, worried about her absent child. Yet there were discrepancies. Jennifer didn't ask anyone at Heiser Farm, the wedding venue, if they'd seen Megan. She also didn't ask any nearby residences.
I checked the hospitals and I checked the jails, and she's not in either one of those.
It seemed strange that Jennifer had apparently been concerned enough about her daughter's welfare to call hospitals and jails, but not so concerned that she called the emergency 911 line.
And she doesn't have her phone. She didn't have her phone. She left it in my car. She didn't have her wallet. Everything was in my car.
Megan had not been picked up by the authorities. The last person who had seen her alive seemed to be her mother, Jennifer. And without her phone and her wallet, the probability that she would make her own way home was diminishing by the minute. When she didn't show up for work that morning, the police agreed that there was reason for concern. Volunteer search parties were formed, including a group of firefighters. Megan's father had previously been a fire captain, and so it was unsurprising that this community rallied around. But even then, they didn't have any luck finding her for the first 4 crucial days in the investigation. Missing posters were printed and plastered everywhere in the area. Yamhill County Search and Rescue also got involved, using helicopters to capture an aerial view and scan for heat signatures. But for now, Megan was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, the police took a closer look at Jennifer's car. It was the last place Megan had been seen after all, and it contained her abandoned personal effects, her phone, her wallet, and her shoes, which she'd taken off for the drive home. This was another worrying detail. Megan was out there somewhere in rough terrain, barefoot. Investigators are trained to be suspicious. When something doesn't add up in a witness's story, those discrepancies could turn out to be significant. They honed in on the fact that Megan's belongings were in the front of the car, then, when Jennifer had said her daughter had jumped out of the back seat. And there was other evidence in the car too. One detective found a clump of blonde hair in the front seat. It still had roots attached, meaning it couldn't just have fallen out. The hair had been pulled out. Jennifer's argument with her daughter then hadn't been the verbal spat she described to police. It had escalated into a physical fight. These lies, or omissions as Jennifer said they were when questioned, were enough cause for suspicion that the investigators asked Jennifer to sit for a polygraph test. A polygraph test is designed to indicate whether a suspect is lying in a police interview. The results cannot be used in court, but they're often enough to point the police in the right direction. So, Jennifer's polygraph test was scheduled for 9 a.m. on August 21st at the Salem Police Department. The police warned her not to take any drugs or alcohol other than prescribed medications before the test, since that could jeopardize the accuracy of the test results. When Jennifer arrived at the station, however, she had taken a muscle relaxer. She said she'd taken it to help her sleep, forgetting that the police had told her not to. The test had to be delayed to that afternoon. Finally, they began the polygraph at 1:32 p.m.
And then it got heated in the car? Okay. And did it ever get physical in the car?
She pulled my hair.
Okay. How far from the venue were you, or was it still at the venue?
No, it was right before she got out of the car. We'd already started driving, and she was yelling at me. And she just yanked my head back. And I slammed on the brakes. And then I yelled at her, "What are you doing? Gia's in the car." And I reached back and hit her arm. Travis to hit her arm. I was trying to make her let go of my hair. And when she finally let go of my hair, I started slowing the car down, which is when she started opening the door and saying, "I'm going to get out."
Jennifer painted a vivid picture of the fight she had with her daughter in the car. In her story, it was Megan who was the aggressor, even though Megan was by all accounts a warm and sensitive mother whose 3-year-old Gia was in the car with them at the time.
That's why I ended up thinking she'd had more to drink than we thought.
Okay.
You know, because it was just so out of control.
This didn't match up with the witnesses who said it was Jennifer, not Megan, who'd been acting drunk at the wedding. And then there was the crucial moment itself.
She's like, "I'm going to get out." And I'm like, "You're not getting out. You're not getting out of the car." And I was almost to a stop. And she started opening the door, which is why I was slowing down. And I was almost to a stop, and she just opened it and jumped out.
The polygraph examiner wrote in his report that Jennifer had displayed erratic and inconsistent physiological responses. The test, in other words, was inconclusive. It wasn't clear whether she lied or not, so investigators requested she return for a follow-up test the next day. She agreed, but sent an email that same night to postpone the second polygraph. She never rescheduled it. 2 days later, on August 23rd, a body was discovered on an embankment off the highway through Dayton. It was Megan Cordy. The medical examiner determined that she had died of blunt force trauma. 2 of her vertebrae were broken and she suffered head trauma. But the immediate cause of death had been an aortic separation, which would have caused immediate loss of blood pressure and internal bleeding. Her injuries were consistent with leaving a vehicle and hitting a fixed object, like a guardrail. However, this would have had to have happened at much higher speeds than the 5 miles per hour Jennifer had claimed she was driving at. Megan was also found over 9 miles away from where Jennifer suggested she had last been seen. The inconclusive polygraph was looking even more telling, but the police had another witness to ask: 3-year-old Gia. Interviewed by a child specialist, she remembered Megan sitting in the front seat of the car, not the back, as Jennifer had claimed. Jennifer did indeed slow the car, and Megan got out, but crucially, Megan got back in. She got into the back seat, and Jennifer continued to drive. She accelerated onto the freeway, and this, according to Gia, was the moment that her mother jumped out of the car for the second time. Gia's testimony, despite her age, was deemed reliable. This account made sense with the other evidence in the case. Megan had not been pushed out of the car, so her death was ruled accidental. But Jennifer had still lied about the circumstances of the death, and she'd still been driving under the influence. So on October 1st, 2018, Jennifer was charged with a DUI and reckless endangerment. Prosecutors claimed Jennifer did not turn the vehicle around and look for Megan, as she had previously stated. And she did not call police straight away because she was intoxicated. Jennifer pled guilty to the DUI and was sentenced to 5 days in jail. She was also ordered to have no contact with Gia. In October 2019, Megan's father filed a lawsuit for $500,000 against Jennifer for wrongful death. The suit was dismissed in March 2020. He also attempted to sue the wedding venue for over-serving alcohol to Jennifer, asking for $1 million. The outcome of this lawsuit is unknown. Both cases speak to a father desperately trying to understand his daughter's death, a father dismayed and disturbed by what he sees as the unjust lack of legal consequences. Jennifer has not been found legally responsible for her daughter's death, nor will we ever know if there was something more to their argument that night. What are your thoughts on this tragic story? Was Jennifer deliberately hiding the truth? Was her daughter's death really an accident?
She conspired with numerous other individuals in and outside of Alaska, including juveniles, forever altering everybody's life. This never would have happened if it weren't for Denali Bremer.
What do you do when your child doesn't pick up the phone? It's a situation every parent fears, and Timothy Hoffman was no exception. When his 19-year-old daughter Cynthia disappeared one weekend in June 2019, he was left scouring the countryside and looking to her friends for answers. But did they know more than they were saying? And could this picturesque Alaska hiking trail be the site of a hideous murder? Cynthia was a trusting young woman, and when that trust was taken advantage of, it had disastrous consequences. A web of lies, a group conspiracy, and a catfishing killer. Let's dive in to discover the truth of what happened to Cynthia Hoffman. Cynthia Hoffman was born in 1999. She came from a large blended family in East Anchorage, Alaska, where she lived in a trailer with her father, siblings, and family friends. Theirs was a vibrant home full of life and laughter. Cynthia's father, Timothy, loved his family with fervor and was fiercely protective, especially over Cynthia, whom he called Cece. We'll also call her Cece as a gesture of respect towards this sweet, loving girl. Cece had learning disabilities. She hadn't done that well in school, having had to switch schools in order to graduate in 2018. According to her father, she had the mental book learning abilities of a 7th grader. Nonetheless, Cece was an active participant in her family life and helped her father run his business, Hoffman Handyman and Repair. She and her sisters had learned their father's trade, and Cece had become an adept handyman in her own right. She was capable of measuring windows, churning concrete, and generally working hard to support her father. She was a conscientious, trusting 19-year-old who knew the value of honest work. Still, because of Cece's learning disabilities, her father worried about her. She was a trusting person who only wanted to make friends.
In this family, you all have phones. When Dad calls, you answer.
It was important that Timothy knew where his daughter was when he needed her, and she knew it was important that she pick up the phone. What happened then the day she didn't answer? It was the beginning of June 2019. That weekend, Cece had helped her father prepare a camper for an outing. Her sisters had helped, and their reward was a small amount of cash and a trip to the mall. Cece was supposed to meet up with one of her sisters on Sunday, June 2nd, to collect this reward. She was spending the afternoon with friends, going to the movies. At least this is what she had told her family. But she never showed up to meet her sister, and she never picked up the phone. Cece's father knew she was vulnerable. He immediately felt sick with worry for his missing daughter. He called the police and was told he needed to wait 24 hours to report her missing. As a result, he believed the police weren't taking him seriously when he told them his daughter had learning disabilities and was vulnerable. A spokesperson for Anchorage Police later said that her vulnerability hadn't been in the report. Otherwise, a higher alert would have gone out to the public sooner. But Timothy wasn't going to wait for the authorities' permission. He was a member of the local biking community, and he used that network and his huge family to send out search parties.
I drove my motorcycle through woods and on bike paths. I floored it all over town doing speed limits that I shouldn't have been doing.
He looked wherever he could think of across the local area, but there was no sign of Cece. Hours became days, and she still didn't come home. Cece's friend Angela said she'd dropped Cece off at a local park, Polar Bear Park, on the Sunday afternoon. This would make Angela the last person to see her before her disappearance. Angela and Timothy texted over the next few days when Cece was missing. Angela said things like, "I hope she comes home safely, she's my best friend, and I'm starting to get worried." She also said, "She won't answer me, I think she's ignoring everyone, and I don't trust what she said about that guy. I loved her too. I want the best for her and want her to come back." There was little context given about this guy that Angela didn't trust, but Angela was implying that Cece had gone off with a suspicious character of her own accord, that maybe she'd still come to her senses and return home. But tragically, this was not to be the case. Around dinner time on Tuesday night, 2 days after Cece first went missing, there was a knock on the door of the Hoffmans' trailer. It was the police. They came bearing the news that every parent dreads. The news that Timothy had suspected since the beginning of this awful saga. His daughter had been found dead. Cece's body had been discovered on the bank of the Eklutna River near the hiking trail at Thunderbird Falls on the outskirts of Anchorage. It was a picturesque setting that it turned out had witnessed a horrific crime. Because Cece's death had not been an accident. Her feet had been bound with duct tape, and she'd been shot in the back of the head. So how did she get out there, 20 miles north of home, and who had killed her? Key to investigations like these is the last person who saw the victim alive. Naturally, then, police looked at Cece's friend Angela, who had apparently last seen Cece dropping her off at the park on Sunday afternoon, and she'd been texting encouraging things to Cece's father ever since. But there was a darker side to the story. Angela was not this girl's real name. Her name was actually Denali Bremer. She had had a difficult upbringing. She was taken from her biological mother and adopted at age 18 months, leading to Denali's feelings of confusion about her own identity. She liked to go by multiple aliases, like Angela, Angel, and Dakota. She'd gone to high school with Cece, and Cece believed them to be best friends. That was what Denali had told Cece's father, too. But Denali had lied about Cece's whereabouts on Sunday afternoon. 19-year-old Denali had recently reconnected with her biological mother, Nicole House, and they were living together. On Sunday evening, Denali had come home in a distressed emotional state.
She was honestly crying so hard that I couldn't understand what she was saying.
She had brought home a friend whom Nicole believed to be called Anthony, and both young people seemed very upset. Something had obviously happened. Nicole pried for answers. Eventually, Denali confessed that they'd gone to Thunderbird Falls with Cece Hoffman and that Denali's friend, supposedly Anthony, had shot Cece in the head.
He was very matter-of-fact about the whole thing, almost glib. When he told me about shooting Cynthia in the head and kicking her body into the water, he laughed. And I will never in my life forget that.
Nicole didn't know whether to believe them. The story seemed too outlandish and too horrific to be true. But the next day, she saw reports about Cece's disappearance, and she knew her daughter had something to do with it, so she phoned the police.
I knew that I couldn't, in good conscience, not come forward with the information that I had.
Police found the body of 19-year-old Cynthia Hoffman last night near Thunderbird Falls. She was bound, shot, and placed in a river, killed by a younger teenage boy as her friend stood by.
On Tuesday, June 4th, the police read Denali her rights and interviewed her. She said that she, Cece, and Anthony, whose actual name was Caden McIntosh, had been smoking weed together in the valley on Sunday afternoon. They drove towards Anchorage and stopped in a parking lot near Thunderbird Falls. They went into the woods, but instead of following the hiking trail that led to a spectacular 200-foot waterfall, they followed a path parallel to the Eklutna River, walking until they found an isolated clearing. Here, according to Denali, they decided to mess around with duct tape, taking photos of each other. They bound Cece with duct tape around her wrists and ankles. When they put tape over her mouth, according to Denali, she started to panic. They removed the tape from her mouth and hands. In Denali's story, Cece threatened to call the police and tell them Denali and Caden had kidnapped and assaulted her. Meanwhile, Denali was holding her gun. She did not explain why she had brought it with her or why she had it in her hand. She claimed that Caden took the gun from her and used it to shoot Cece once in the back of the head. Cece lay there, twitching, before Caden pushed her into the river. Denali and Caden fled to the parking lot. According to Denali, it was Caden's idea that Denali text Cece's sister to tell her she'd dropped Cece in the park. Denali did this because she said she was scared of Caden. The pair went back to Anchorage, and there, according to Denali, Caden burned Cece's purse, her ID, some of her clothing, and Denali's gun. The police then interviewed Caden, who corroborated Denali's story. He said he'd blacked out during the event itself, but that he did remember shooting Cece and pushing her into the river. The police searched the spot they'd described by the river, and they found Cece's body, bound and shot as they'd said, so the police had found the guilty parties. They charged Caden with first-degree murder and evidence tampering. They didn't charge Denali, perhaps satisfied with her story that she'd been scared into complying. But Cece's father was not convinced. He couldn't believe that his daughter would willingly have gone along with any of their plans, including smoking weed.
The only thing I can imagine is she was yelling her daddy's name. And it goes through my head over and over and over again.
As the investigation continued, Timothy would realize that his skepticism was justified because his daughter's murder was far more twisted than it appeared. Police looked into Denali's cell phone records and social media. They discovered that at the time of the killing, she had been continually texting and sending visual media to someone known as Tyler. She had since deleted the conversation from her phone, but investigators were able to recover its content, revealing that Denali had been recording their attack on Cece on her phone and sending it to this Tyler at his own request. What Denali and Caden had portrayed as stupid kids fooling around and making a mistake turned out to be part of a far larger, more sinister plot. This murder was premeditated, and whoever this Tyler was, he was at the heart of it. Denali had previously been pregnant and given the baby up for adoption. Feeling isolated and perhaps still uncertain of her own identity, she then turned to dating apps. In early 2019, Denali had started talking to people all over the country. This included 21-year-old Tyler, who didn't share a last name. He represented himself as a multimillionaire who lived in Kansas. With him, Denali went by the name Angel, and she began to confide in him, growing closer to this stranger she had only ever spoken to online. He was 2 years older than her and a person of apparent power and influence. Perhaps she felt flattered by the attention, and they began an online relationship. But there was a dark side to this relationship. Tyler shared his dark fantasies with Denali, who seemed to accept them readily. These fantasies became ever more twisted until May, when Tyler offered Denali $9 million if she'd murder someone in Alaska and send him photos or videos of the killing. What drives someone to kill their supposed best friend? The promise of $9 million from a man they'd never met and might be lying about his entire identity? Apparently, this was enough for Denali. She agreed to commit the murder. Denali spoke to 4 of her friends, Caden, 19-year-old Caleb Leyland, and 2 others, and together they hatched a plan to carry out the killing and split the reward. The group selected Cece as their victim, perhaps because of her learning disabilities, which might have made her supposedly an easy target. This choice was approved by Tyler. Denali had told him that Cece was her best friend. The group planned that Caleb Leyland would give Denali and Caden his car on June 2nd to use in the murder. Caleb's share would be $500,000. They brought duct tape and Denali's gun, bought for self-defense with them. They told Cece they were going on a hike. Trustingly and fatally, she believed them.
Cynthia Hoffman was lured to this trail under the guise of going for a hike. One day after she was reported missing, police found her body bound with duct tape along a riverbed not too far from where we are right now. What makes this story all the more disturbing, according to authorities, all 5 teenagers were motivated by money promised to one of them by a man met online, thousands of miles away.
But who was Tyler really? Because he wasn't a Kansas millionaire at all. Investigation revealed that he was actually Darren Schillmiller, a 21-year-old resident of New Salisbury, Indiana. He lived in his adopted grandmother's basement and was considered creepy by those around him. He'd been federally investigated the previous year, and yet he hadn't been put behind bars, leaving him free to instruct Denali and her friends in this awful crime. The photo he had sent Denali of himself was in fact someone else's photo. He had catfished her and convinced her to commit murder based on a total lie. There was no $9 million. Instead, after the murder, Darren tried to blackmail her into attacking other people in Alaska. Luckily, the police caught up with this insidious ring before they could commit another murder. Denali was interviewed again on June 7th, by which point police had discovered a Snapchat video in which she appeared to confess the crime. The group's conspiracy fell apart, nor did Darren, or Tyler as he called himself, escape consequences for what he had done. He was extradited to Alaska, and there each of them faced justice. Caden McIntosh is still awaiting trial, but Caleb Leyland pled guilty to murder and will be sentenced in June. And the 2 driving forces behind this awful crime, Denali and Darren, have both been sentenced to 99 years in prison, having both pled guilty to first-degree murder.
Ms. Bremer, to the sole remaining charge, count 1 of the indictment, murder in the first degree pursuant to 1141-100A1A, what plea did you want to enter?
Guilty.
All right, I'm going to accept your guilty plea.
On her way from the stand, House paused to say something to her daughter, who's been in jail since 2019.
I told her I loved her, because I do. She's still my daughter. But the choices that she made and the decisions that she made put her in the position she's in right now. And when someone loses their life because of a decision you made, there's got to be consequences for that.
We're here to just show support to the family, let them know that we care. We're not happy with what's happened, that this young life has been taken from us. This is a life that should have been protected.
If we help one kid or one parent to ask a kid what you're doing, where you're going, who you're with, let me look at your phone. If we help one kid, we've accomplished everything. The town of Anchorage is pissed off at what's happening.
To hear you knocking at the door.
All I know is no parent. I buried a child.
What she would have felt that day. And right now I just feel anger, sadness.
We happened to be born on the exact same day. So we shared a lot of birthdays, a lot of great birthdays together.
Take my body.
Not a year is gonna pass where my birthday cake isn't gonna have Cynthia's name on it.
For all we can do is keep her in our hearts and memories and think of all the good times we've had with her.
I'm glad we found everybody that was involved. So now she can rest in peace. I love you, Cynthia.
What are your thoughts on this awful story? Was Denali manipulated by a malicious, murderous catfish? Or was she equally to blame in this horrific crime? Until next time, stay safe, keep up with our channel, and we'll see you very soon on The Decoder.